Game on. Let's do this. What's today's date? The second? Third. See, that's why I asked. All right. So, August 3rd, Conservation Commission. Let's open it. Ta-da. All right. First things first. Did everybody get to see the minutes? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. February 16, 23, March 23 and 30, April 20, and May 11.
Can I suggest we push that to the end of the meeting?
Oh, well, because we might need to vote.
No.
No, we don't.
No? We're good?
We're
Then fine,
good.
skip. Moving on. Let's go, we'll do the trustees because it's quick and dirty. Yeah, sorry, Mary. But then you can come back and stay.
It's quick and clean.
Well, all right.
There you go.
Anyway, so Town of Newbury, the trustees of reservations, 173 Hay Street, DEP number 050-1355, an NOI for the restoration of up to 30 acres of salt marsh through restoration of hydrology altered by past agricultural practice. This was continued from July 13th, and the only thing we were waiting on was the DEP number, as far as I know.
The DEP number that's listed on this is actually incorrect. It's 1361,
Beautiful.
not 55.
1361. As long as it's cool in the minutes, and we're cool. But that's all we needed. So, who wants to make a motion?
Motion.
No, you
Motion to
can't make
accept.
a motion on this one.
I can.
No, this
I
is the
wasn't
one.
here for that.
Yeah, this was all the thoughts from last time. But thank you. Make a motion.
We should make a motion to accept the NOI with the conditions we discussed in previous meetings.
Beautiful.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Pete?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Also yes. Good. That's done. Now Cricket. So Cricket Lane LLC, 55 Pearson Drive, DEP number 050-1355. A continued NOI to construct 24 single-family homes with 800 feet of roadway, common septic, water, sewer, and stormwater. Roadway includes a limited wetland filling and replacement with work in the buffer zone continued from July 13th.
Good evening.
Yeah. You want to pull up? You want to stay there?
I'm going to pull up a little bit here. I didn't know I thought I was third on the agenda.
Well, we need Pete, and we're trying to, he's doing us a favor, so we're trying to get him out of here as quick as he can.
I'm Ben Osgood, engineer for the project. Walter Erickson, who's the owner, is not able to attend tonight. And his attorney, Doug Duchesne, I believe, is right here, making the grand entrance. He's waiting outside.
Well, Pete's not going to be able to see.
Yeah, for the sake of-
But that camera's also, it's a little tough tonight because you're getting views from both sides.
Where do you want me to, so he can see it better?
Just block our view. We've seen the note, and then you can present to the room too. We've seen enough of this.
All right, there you go. All right, so
You guys good
stand
with
back
that?
here, and since you can see, you can look at the screen, you can see me up here.
There you
so.
go. Mirrors.
So we were here probably a month and a half ago. I think we scheduled a site visit. We did a brief introduction on the plans. We did have a site visit a few weeks ago. I think a few members were out there. We walked around and took a look at the site. And again, we have a 24-unit housing development. We access from Pearson Drive. We have filling in this area here. It's a limited project filling to access the upland areas on the site. We replace that filling over in here. The numbers are on a different sheet, but I think we replace about 1.5 times the wetland filling. The balance of the project is a buffer zone project. So we have the wetlands, we have a series over here on the north side of the project, which abuts the Martin Burns. We have a good portion of the site. The site extends over to the east. It is wetlands here. That's the C-series wetlands. We have a series of flags here, which is an isolated land subject to flooding and an isolated wetland. The isolated wetland is not jurisdictional. The isolated land subject to flooding is jurisdictional, but our work avoids any impact there to the isolated wetland or the isolated land subject to flooding. We have stormwater, obviously the road drainage. We have an underground detention storage here. into a detention pond that's located in the buffer zone over in this area. We have another system that comes down to a detention treatment system here, and then discharges into the north wetlands. And then we have a third pond, a small pond here, which takes water from this area and discharges it into the wetlands. There's been a lot of discussion about the vernal pools. There's one vernal pool. It overlaps our property here. It's mainly located on the Martin Burns Reservation property, but we do show it overlaps on our property, and we meet all the requirements for offset to the vernal pool. This area here was investigated several times as a vernal pool, and since your last meeting, I believe on July 7th or so, Natural Heritage actually came out and took a look at the vernal pool, and they determined that they do not have enough information to certify this as a vernal pool. So once again, I mean, we've tried several times to certify this as a vernal pool. I think it's at least 3 formal submittals and an informal submittal earlier than that. And every time there hasn't been enough evidence, and Natural Heritage has not agreed to certify it as a vernal pool. So I know that's a quick overview of everything. I think it's probably best to just open it up to questions to the commission. We haven't really spoken since the site visit, and I'm sure that generated some questions in everybody's minds. We'd be happy to take questions.
Might want to move it back so the commission can see it.
All right, I know I've got some things on my mind, but either one of you want to go first? Or Pete, do you want to go first?
Pete, Not right now, thanks.
Okay.
I'm just curious, Mr. Osgood, what, in all the previous reviews of the project, was there any commentary on the retaining wall up in the northwest corner of the property? I mean, you say it meets all the requirements. What is the distance of that retaining wall from the vernal pool?
So the vernal pool, approximately 35 feet from the edge of the vernal pool.
That's kind of what I thought it was.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of, does that meet the standards for, you know?
So the vernal pool doesn't have an offset that says you can't be any closer than this as far as work is concerned. What the requirement is stormwater from impervious surfaces cannot flow towards the vernal pool. So we have roofs, we have driveways. The purpose of the retaining wall, we didn't have it there originally, but when we went through the reviews with the town's consultant, they said we need to get the stormwater to go the other direction. So that retaining wall raises the land and allows the stormwater to flow away from the vernal pool. So we don't have any stormwater coming from pavement or roofs, which could possibly provide pollution to the vernal pool. So that all flows away into our stormwater system and into our treatment systems.
But as far as you know, there's no recommended
There is
offset.
no
You could put that retaining wall right on the edge of the vernal pool.
right. There's no offset requirement. This is you need to be 25 feet, let's say. There is no requirement that says that, other than stormwater can't drain into the vernal pool, and stormwater management structures need to be at least 100 feet from the vernal pool.
I'm learning every day.
Right. So I will say the question has come up about the amount of area that drains to the vernal pools, and we're taking water away from the vernal pools.
Yeah.
And we had actually done a calculation, done a little map, way back in the beginning. So this vernal pool has approximately 18 acres drains into this vernal pool from the Martin Burns Reservation. And what is on our site that drains into that vernal pool is about 0.9 acres. So, we're taking a little less than that 0.9, because we have some area that we're, we're not disturbing and will still drain into that vernal pool. So, in the grand scheme of things, we're not taking away a lot of water that won't drain into that vernal pool. And so it will remain as a vernal pool and function as a vernal pool.
You've answered my question, thank you. I kind of wonder how the creatures that reside in that vernal pool are gonna feel about that retaining wall.
They won't like the
I
kind
don't think it's gonna be a big climb. How high is that, by the way, at the?
I think it's about 5 or 6 feet tall right there. Yeah, we have 72, it's actually 8
And
feet
there's
tall,
no-
one spot, the highest spot.
Have you,
We put a fence above it, it's a wall, it'll be there and undisturbed beyond the wall and yard on the upper side of the wall.
What kind of creatures are you thinking?
the amphibians that reside in vernal pools?
Yeah, so basically a vernal pool.
I know.
Oh, all right, so you're fine. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that.
just don't see how that's going to impact.
Marbled salamanders don't really like walls typically. They're not great vertical climbers.
You should see them when they dress up as spies with those sticky fingers.
That's true.
Anyway, you good?
That
Jeff?
Seems nitpicky.
No, somebody else may pick up on some of that, I don't know.
All right, well, yeah, let's turn down this side. You wanna go?
I don't think I can,
Well, you can't vote, but I mean,
Yeah.
you can by all means.
I have no questions.
All right. Benjamin?
I'm still, I think from the last time we met, I had a lot of questions about the need to put the restored wetland on the west side or the northwest side of the current wetland over there. And I understand what you're saying about it being a Series A wetland and having to restore a Series A, and all that. So my question is, why can't it be on, I guess, to make things clear, the development side of things rather than the boundary with Barton Burns?
We did have it there originally, and through the review process, because of there's obviously been some encroachment on the wetlands over here, so, the review engineer, LEC, and Martin wasn't comfortable with putting replacement areas in an area where there's already been a continuing violation that we're fixing, and she thought it'd be better to be over here, on the other side where it wouldn't be disturbed, it wouldn't be encroached upon. There's no chance for any encroachment on that wetland replacement area.
Theoretically, there's always a chance, but I guess what I'm saying is, why couldn't you put it in the area that's currently occupied by the water treatments and everything else on the west side of, in the north side of your planned road?
We have, vernal pool up here, we can't go near the vernal pool. We have to cross in this location, we have to capture our storm water at the lowest spot. It's just not an area where we can put the wetland replacement area. We can't use the wetland replacement to also deal with storm water. So we have to run the road through there, and it's just geometrically impossible to put it there. We did have, as I said, we had a location that meets all the requirements in here. And we were asked to move it on the other side, and I guess the opinion was that, we're to cross that wetlands, they'll take those mats that they use in a swamp. It'll be a 30-foot long mat. It will span that wetland, the trucks will drive over it, they won't disturb any of the soil or vegetation, and they'll pull the mat up and the vegetation will just grow back. We do quantify where the mats will go and call it disturbance, but in fact, it's just gonna be setting the mats on the ground, and it really won't have any disturbance to the wetlands below.
So you're saying that engineering-wise, it is impossible to put a wetland restoration area where you currently have all of the wastewater treatment and retention ponds? Or is it fiscally not desirable?
These are the areas that have the soils for the septic system. They're very permeable soils, they're sand and, good perking soils. And We need that for the septic system. We have to cross, like I said, we have one location to cross for the road. And we have to treat, have that detention and treatment right adjacent to that road. It's the low spot on the, so we can't pump water uphill to treat it and store it, so we really have to use that area for the detention. Which, like I said, requires us to, we were gonna go downstream, but we were asked to go on the other side.
But you're not removing rock and ledge where these, I did not make the site walk with my ANRAD. I remember quite a bit of topography in that area,
Yeah.
so you're not removing any rock or ledge to make room for houses or anything like that?
No, there's very little bedrock here. We did
Yeah.
a lot of test pits. We didn't hit bedrock, we hit big rocks, but we could dig them out. And, there may be some bedrock down in some of the deeper cuts for the sewers, but,
Yeah, I guess my point then is if you're gonna be moving a lot of earth and you have all this other stuff, it's not like you're gonna be going in and preserving the topography of the site. So I'm curious as to why it has to be right there. And if you're gonna be moving all this earth and altering the topography, why you couldn't make a depression somewhere else to have the pits?
because we can't, I mean, the road comes down, here's the low point, we have to drain the road, we need to drain the water out of the low points, we can't just go dig a big hole 200-300 feet away, it's gonna be 20 feet deep, it's not feasible to do that.
Well, I guess engineering wise, I guess what I'm trying to get at is engineering wise, yes, you could bring in fill, you could heighten, you could raise that area, and then you could dig in somewhere else.
I guess we could build big retaining walls all down along the side of the road.
Hold that thought, I think I'll get into it.
Yeah, okay, go for it. Have at it.
So just from my angle, there's two things that need to be covered. The one being the vernal pool that you mentioned, you had natural heritage out a bunch of times. I'd like to get natural heritage involved, and actually either get the emails or write the letter from them or something. That's something that, as far as I know, I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if you have time enough. But yeah, just to see, well, but then the exchanges that he's had with you and with the abutters, and just get the full picture of what they've been doing, and maybe get them in as a separate conversation. Just because there's enough back and forth, enough disagreement between the various parties that I just want to have I just want to bring the source in and just deal with that.
So,
that's going to be something that we're going to have to figure out.
Mr. Cubble, Jacob Cubble is the person who that email is from. He said he's happy to correspond by email. I don't think he's gonna come to a meeting. I don't know that they could do it, but, he's happy. He said he's happy to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So I guess that's,
Okay, cool.
there's the email that we're providing that we communicated with him, and I guess he's saying, have someone from the town call me out, tell them everything, and,
Beautiful. So, Sam, this is on you. So just as a quick and dirty, basically, the applicant has this string of communication and their string of data, and the abutters have a different string of conversation, a different string of data, and they're coming to different conclusions about the same location. And so we just need to sort of find the spot in the middle and figure it out that way.
So, this gentleman, the abutter, went on our property, trespassed, and did the investigations,
All true,
right?
don't disagree, but maybe save it,
But
because that's not jurisdictional for us.
but my point is,
Right.
they submitted their evidence, and he denied it in April.
Right, and
So, I mean, it's not like there's conflicting evidence.
no, but
We
saying
submitted
what-
the same evidence they did, they still denied it.
right, and
Yeah.
instead of getting in between the two of you and deciding who's right and who's wrong, we're just gonna go straight to the third party
Yeah.
and do it that way.
Right.
Speaking of which, it's a good transition. The thing on my mind about the third party review, and Ms. Martin's work, I have decided, at least for myself, I'm not gonna read it because I don't think we should use it. And this is something that we need to talk about. But basically, that was somebody else's process and somebody else's fruit. And for us to resolve Ben's question, I don't think it's fair to do it in this manner back and forth. I think we need to do another peer review to get to the, that detail, maybe this other detail. But just to, you know, arguably go through all the same stuff again, but do it in this space rather than taking somebody else's peer review from a different process in a different space that, you know, in a manner of speaking, doesn't have any bearing on what we're deciding. And so that's something I want to sort of bring up and cover and see how you guys feel about that thought. So those are my two major points.
And if I could just respond. Recall that as part of the comprehensive permit application, the zoning board was in fact acting as the conservation commission, if you will, for the local regulations.
Right, which they're not supposed to.
Well,
Where the conflict?
Well, that is true, except in this, in the context of a comprehensive.
Right, and in that context, if they need the
And-
information, sure.
And your zoning board was very considerate about its role in that regard. I do know that they provided the commission all of the information that they had received. I know we did receive a letter from Mr. Packer thanking us on behalf of the commission for supplying all that information. And we did get some comments in that regard. The zoning board made it very clear that they didn't want us to wait until we filed our notice of intent, because they were aware that notice of intent wouldn't be filed until we got through the comprehensive permit process. And they were very explicit in their requirement that they didn't want to wait, that they wanted to do a complete review of not only the stormwater, but also the proposed project with respect to both the local regulations and the Wetlands Protection Act. So we acquiesced to hiring TEC, LEC, sorry, and Martin. We understood that they have provided peer review services to the town in the past and were well respected. In fact, we were directed to use those parties. They then underwent a very comprehensive peer review, and I will tell you that they held us to answering and addressing all of the comments and questions that were in Mr. Packer's letter, which I assume the commission was aware of, and quite frankly held us to the letter of the law with respect to both your local regulations and the Wetlands Protection Act, because the zoning board was not going to make a determination. So to say that it was a process unlike what you would do is
Right.
not
It may well be
accurate.
the exact duplicate. It may be fully duplicative. And I'm putting that right up there. This may well be an exact duplication of the exact same work that Ann Martin did, and whoever you would hire would come to the exact same conclusion. That is an absolute possibility. But I do not feel comfortable, because I was, you know, in this context, right? The permit is coming before us, the application comes before us.
Sure.
You know, we gotta review the information, we gotta go through the process, the I dotting, the T crossing. And if you brought us, like, if I brought something to the planning board and said, hey, I looked at your senior housing requirements, and this is what I think, you know, it's kind of the same thing, like, that wouldn't work for them. And so the questions that we would ask of the peer reviewer are different questions, like this question of Ben's, for instance. It's a very different question, and that's a very different conversation. And if there wasn't that conversation had by that board and that body in that context, right, like, it doesn't work for me. I don't know about us, it doesn't work for me.
Then why couldn't the commission read Ms. Martin's reports, understand the questions she did answer, and to the extent they don't provide the answers to the specific questions you may have, which I will tell you I'm confident they will. We spent a considerable amount of time determining where these replication areas should go. And as Ben said, we had actually proposed them in the location that you were questioning.
Yeah, I don't think you did, but
All right,
close,
well, in
but-
any event, we were taken to task on where that was gonna be. by a consummate professional in the area. So,
Right.
I mean,
Nor am I
to
saying
me,
you
quite
guys-
frankly, my client is not, is very disappointed in the fact that he may be required to pay for yet another peer review that's gonna do the exact same job.
Yep.
And quite frankly, I don't think it's fair. But
I agree
nevertheless,
with that,
there
actually.
could be a solution that, to the extent the board, after reviewing Ms. Martin's review and what she concluded and what she made us do to meet the rules and regulations, if you feel there isn't something there that wasn't addressed, perhaps the commission could then utilize Ms. Martin to do a supplemental or an additional review to answer any of the comments or questions you have. But the idea of going out with a whole new third-party reviewer and starting over is
Yeah.
very difficult.
And
So-
I'm going to completely agree with you that it is patently unfair, because you should only have to do the process one time. But I don't think, again, speaking for myself, I don't think the commission should be utilizing information provided for at the direction of, under the supervision, however you want to frame it, of the party that's not the Concom. Like, I don't review zoning laws. They shouldn't be reviewing Concom stuff, or if they are, they should be doing it for their own purposes.
But they weren't
not-
reviewing it, their peer reviewer was.
Yes.
Has
but-
this commission ever utilized Ann Martin for peer review?
Okay, let me interrupt, because now we're gonna start getting circular. Let me turn to these guys, because I've said my point.
Alright, very good. But I wanna make it clear, I am suggesting
you have,
that
don't
if
worry.
you wanna go with additional peer review, perhaps utilizing Ms. Martin would be a reasonable compromise.
Anyway.
Can I just say, I have her information here, and I just wanna read you one thing.
Hold on, because
No, I just want, he said we didn't propose the wetland area on the other side. I mean, right here, in her letter, that's her memo, March 15th, 2018, she tells us to move the wetlands to the north, to the
Right.
area to the north.
Right.
You know?
And this is my point in the sense that our considerations, Anne didn't have a conversation with us, and the point that Ben's making, we may well be convinced of that truth, but until we engage with it through the normal means we engage with this kind of thing, rather than as like a fait accompli, right? Like, it's done already and we can't engage with it. That's not how this works for us, or at least for me. I shouldn't, I keep saying the plural, and for now I'm just speaking for myself.
The concerns zoning have and might bring, I think the simplified way for me to say it is that the concerns that zoning might have had and brought to Ann might be different than the concerns we would have. We have different interests that under the WPA that they're not gonna think about, that we might think about. So I'm personally open to taking the time to fully review Ms. Martin's document, and if I find it, wholly deficient, or there's just specific things that need to be followed up on, I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that
Right.
proposition, but I'm also sensitive to what you're saying, because I think that, I heard what you said about Doug being involved at some point. Doug has been retired for 14, 15 months now.
That's it.
He never communicated anything about it to either the chair or the vice chair about this. He never sent us emails about it. He never communicated he was having these discussions. We never heard from Bill Holt about it, or Cara, and now from Sam. So I understand that you might have talked to Doug at some point, but as far as the commission as it exists now, it has existed for the last year, we never heard anything about it. So we're completely in the dark. And I realize that in some way you guys, and to speak to what Brian was saying, it feels unfair because you feel like you're being punished for something that you feel in some ways you probably dotted the i's and crossed the t's on. And believe me, I think it's a shared frustration on our part, because we're like, why was the town never informing the commission until, they never informed the commission. We found out from you guys that they had done this. So you can understand, I think we're in a mutual situation here. That said, I do have a follow-up question from Dan's question at some point. I don't know. if now's the time.
While you're talking, let's stay on topic.
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
I'm not averse to some further. If we can figure out what our additional questions are, I can see going back and extending I don't know if we need a whole new person.
Okay. Pete, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out kind of a hybrid thought process that would make this work. So we take a look at the original documentation that wasn't submitted to us, so that we can review it. Doug has suggested that maybe having the consultant that was utilized available to maybe be here directly to answer any questions that might arise, to fill in that piece that we don't know or we haven't been included in, and then going forward, would that type of an approach be beneficial?
Well, I'm hearing 3 out of 4 saying, you're good with using Ann again. So, yeah, we can do something like that. Maybe, yeah. All right.
I think let's take the time to review the document, figure out what our questions are, and get in.
All right. So then I'll eat my words and I'll have to read Ann's document.
Yep.
All right.
May I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Have you guys read the ZBA decision, the comprehensive permit? Because
No.
that also has conditions in it regarding the wetlands, and that, in addition to reading what Ann provided, I think that might be useful.
Yeah, because again, we wouldn't expect to look there for that kind of thing. So,
Right.
yeah.
So
Thank you.
we can provide a copy of that to you.
Yeah.
That'd be helpful.
All right, cool. All right, so then the plan for the moment is we'll all read that. So then, Sam, you can get that into the Dropbox if it's not there already. And then we will come up with questions and concerns and issues and left outs and whatever to cover in the next meeting. And then we can put together a laundry list that you guys can be sitting there for over what we feel is missing and what we might want to talk.
And it
to
might be
Ann about.
nothing.
And it might be nothing. Good plan? That work for you guys? Alright, fair enough.
Ben has also suggested too that, and maybe it'll be at the following meeting, but we could also talk to Ann about having her come here so that we can, while we're discussing those your questions and comments, she's here listening to them. And then if she has to go back and do some further work for you guys, whatever you'd like to do. We're trying to be cooperative, we just want to try and take advantage of some very expensive and long-term work that we did. And as you know, it's very comprehensive in her analysis.
Alright, so let's figure that out administratively, and then what we can do is sort of, we'll send the questions to you, you can put them together in a bundle, you can reshare them back to all of us, and then we can sort of reply to you individually on maybe our own thoughts and opinions, and then you can communicate them to those guys. Make sense?
The joys of
Too
opening
convoluted?
them up.
Nope.
It's very convoluted.
Yeah.
Alright, so anything else on this end of the table?
So I have one question, engineering question. The elevation wise, the top of the, where the circle is that, do I have that right, is that like 72 feet or 71 feet?
70, there's a couple of spot grades, 70.13.
Okay, and then where the entrance to the development would be, do I have that right, about 54?
Correct.
And Joe's comfortable with all the stormwater management for that?
Joe Sawaka did the review for stormwater management, and he said everything met the requirements.
Okay, great, thank you.
Well, which was after all the changes he required. I mean, there were a number of months, iterations where Joe would suggest modifications to the design, we would redesign it, he would reanalyze it. So that was a conclusion he made, but it was after a number of back and forths and redesigns to meet his requirements.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
I have a follow-up to Dan's. I have a follow-up to Dan's.
Oh, no, yeah, this is a good time for that. Yeah.
Okay. Going back to Dan's question about the 35 feet. So the certified vernal pool is in a resource area.
Correct.
So why my reading of vernal pool regulations would be that that has the certified vernal pool habitat 100-foot buffer. So I'm confused why there isn't a 100. You're saying there isn't a 100-foot buffer, but it's not an isolated vernal pool. It's inside a resource area, which gets it the 100-foot in my reading. So that's why I think maybe Dan was confused and I'm confused.
There's there's not a prohibition of work within that 100-foot area.
I'm just reading the Division of Fish and Wildlife Wetlands Protection Act regulations that says, if in a resource area, protection extends to the CVP, which is the Certified Vernal Pool itself, as well as to a portion of the 100-foot zone surrounding the CVP, referred to as a vernal pool habitat. Oh, you know what? I may be wrong. I'm going to apologize. No, does not exist. My fault. Never mind. I'm misreading things. There you go. I'm willing to say when I'm wrong.
That's
That
okay.
wouldn't-
I've
that
eaten my
wouldn't
words
be
today
by
already
hand.
too.
That
Yeah,
be
wouldn't that be
by
right?
hand. So,
All right, cool. So then, we're good for the moment? Any educational,
No, as we go.
all right, so then, Dan, you, playing spokesperson again?
There's probably multiple people that want to say stuff.
Oh, all right, well, yeah, I mean, this is the public moment, but you seem to be popping up, for everybody, so.
Where should I go?
Get on camera. You can see, so come on, grab a chair from the front. Let Pete see your face.
Like here?
Well,
That camera's
Stay
actually,
separate from the,
yeah, that camera's recording, so.
yeah, like
So just pull the chair up to the center of the
Here,
room,
come close,
pretty
come
much,
hang out.
front and center.
because I'm being,
Call to the principal's office.
from the wrist.
So,
You're still here, see the
yeah,
screen.
and your back is to that camera too, so you might wanna face the table. and-
TV's that way, Dan.
Closer.
Make your decision. TV's that way.
So
YouTube and TV's that
I'm
way.
gonna point this way and
Yeah.
talk to you guys?
Come closer.
Come get over here with the picture one.
Yeah.
Is this what you're asking?
Yeah, so, you know, introduce yourself to the viewers.
I'm gonna talk this way and this
That's the
way?
YouTube
Oh,
camera.
that is the
Yes.
YouTube camera, I'm doing this
YouTube
wrong.
camera, So it's face the table.
Well, yeah, but
Just
Pete
face the
needs to
table.
see him. Whatever,
Where do you want me to go?
I don't know. Talk to Pete, you know, start talking.
I mean, I don't need to be on camera for my voice to be heard.
That's true.
Yeah,
You just need to make sure you speak up.
See, this is the new normal that we're
And
not
that-
yet.
Excuse me, that mic is the one that's actually gonna be recording you.
All right, I'll just come sit over here like this. How's this? So, where to begin? First of all, we had a letter submitted on behalf of the neighborhood, written by one of our lawyers. We talked about it at the previous meeting, I haven't heard any mention of it. There's a list of issues that were put forth. Maybe that's for next meeting. Well, you know, it sounds like next meeting's gonna have lots of stuff, right? The 100-foot boundary is relevant here, and I'm a little confused about the interpretation of the WPA, because there are other towns like Ipswich that have a 200-foot buffer. Now, that's a town bylaw, right? So they're saying 200 feet instead of the state 100-foot boundary as put forth in the WPA. The reason for that is because 100 feet is a joke, right? 100 feet of habitat around a vernal pool is not enough. Now, we're not saying that there needs to be more, and in this case, we can't really enforce more, but you can enforce 100 feet, right? It's in the WPA. So you guys could say, look, this is unacceptable. First of all, it's on a protected area. The wildlife management area is a protected area owned by the state, right? If anything, that should be treated even higher than the normal. It's not a mosquito pond that occasionally has frogs. It's on protected land. So, you know, more should be done. That corner there, if you're encroaching, just take some of the units away. Which gets to one of the main points that the neighborhood has, and we've talked with the zoning board about. These guys say that they've had design changes, yada yada. Okay, some of the details of stormwater, whatever. The design hasn't changed since the beginning. There's 24 units. They're trying to put 24 units in an area that cannot accommodate 24 units. So when you have questions about can the engineering be changed to make this situation better, they keep saying, no, we can't. Well, yeah, no kidding. You have a design that doesn't make sense for the property. So you're forced to create all of these situations that we shouldn't allow. This isn't how this process should go. If anything, cut the number of units in half and then design it the proper way so that you don't have to be exempt from any kind of wetland protection bylaws or anything that would result in a decrease in the function of the habitat there. That's the first part. I won't go into too many more details because it sounds like there's a ton of follow-up that needs to happen. That land in the middle there, the isolated land subject to flooding, Mary surveyed it in 2017. She found tadpoles, wood frog tadpoles, hundreds of them, and a later visit found metamorphs. Those are two slam dunk pieces of evidence for a vernal pool, right? That was submitted, and it was deemed equivocal by Natural Heritage for reasons that have not been made clear. That's the communication you guys talked about earlier that needs to be brought forth, because from the experts that we've talked to, we cannot find a single person that can explain to us why wood frog metamorphs in a vernal pool habitat would not automatically classify that water body as a vernal pool. It doesn't make any sense. Mary followed up as they asked her to. She went the next spring and found wood frog egg masses. Guess what? We found wood frog egg masses this year. The vernal pool guidelines have information about obligate and facultative species, right? So obligate species are wood frogs, spotted salamanders. They can't breed anywhere else. A facultative species would be a spring peeper where they can breed in many different places. Why would we care about facultative species in a vernal pool habitat if we aren't willing to sometimes protect a wetland that is vernal pool-like, but maybe not a high-quality vernal pool, right? My point is, we're not dealing with that here. We're not dealing with a pond that looks like it could be a vernal pool, but could just be a mosquito mud pie. What we have are wood frogs successfully breeding from it, right? And that is what a vernal pool is. So if you consider that middle isolated land subject to flooding vernal pool, it completely revamps the entire project because there's way too much encroachment around that. So that needs to get figured out. Natural Heritage said they don't have the evidence to certify it. They specifically say that Concoms can protect areas that seem like they might be vernal pools but can't yet be certified for various reasons. They want a long-term study. We can either treat it as a vernal pool. I think the solution is to either treat it as a vernal pool and change the design accordingly, or wait for a long-term study to prove whether or not it's a vernal pool. So those are two potential solutions here. I think that's all I'm going to say for now. I know it's a lot. I apologize for making you guys listen to me, but I'm hoping that the concerns that we put forth in that letter from the last meeting will be addressed next time, or whenever you can.
Yeah, so just on that point, do you know where that is?
On my desk.
Cool, so we have it.
All right.
And that'll go in the Dropbox?
Yes.
Cool.
Could we get a copy of that as well, please?
Dan, can you finish off by stating your name and your address, please?
I know.
Dan Linden, 68 Pearson Drive.
Thank you. Who else? I mean, you want to take Dan's seat? You picked the speaking seat, apparently. Anybody else going for this one?
I'll go ahead. Sorry. Hi, everybody. Melissa Goldner, 19 Pearson Drive. I don't have much more to add than to what Dan said, and I'm obviously not gonna be able to re-say what he did as eloquently and as informed as he is. But I did want to add that I kind of perked up when the developer said that they did a visit between the last meeting and now, because a vernal pool is a springtime pool, and that would have been July. So not finding a vernal pool now or wood frogs now doesn't, to me, say it's not a vernal pool. So I just wanted to add that piece, and thank you guys for your due diligence.
Cool. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay.
Hey, Brian, can I say, sorry, one more point. So the neighborhood received a letter about the trespassing. I just want to make clear that middle vernal pool crosses a stone wall that goes onto an abutting property. So all of our sampling was on that side of the property. There's no trespassing that needed to happen. Just putting that out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dad.
All right, so again, going once, going twice. All right, cool. So then we've got a little bit to do. Get in touch with DP about Whirlpool junk. We'll do the emails back and forth about Ann Martin's bid, figure that out. Am I missing anything? Did I forget anything? You're gonna send us the,
I'll send you the ZBAs.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it to Sam. So you just need to
Yeah, all right.
continue.
So we just need, Ann Martin's stuff and the document that got sent that I have
Yep,
downstairs.
their
from them.
letter, Ann Martin's stuff, the ZBA thing.
ZBA permit,
That
and that
drops
can
into
all
the
go in the
Dropbox.
Dropbox.
And Martin's is in the Dropbox.
Oh, is it?
It's already there.
It's already there. Yep.
Okay, and then,
Brian, what's the timeline on the questions? How we, after we read Ann Martin's?
I think we should give Samantha our input prior to the next meeting, so that she can have a document of everything, so that, so we don't repeat each other.
You know, speed it up a little bit maybe, but that's the way it's gotta be.
And then, well, because we have to, discuss it in this context.
Okay.
So as long as we know what we're gonna be talking about,
As long as we know the timeline.
yeah, I mean, we could do something else, but that just is what off the top of my head.
It's a lot of material. How long is the ZBA?
It's actually about 20 pages or so.
Yeah.
But the
Ann Martin.
ZBA decision,
Yeah,
well,
but the
What-
conditions are not that long.
right, what the zoning board did is in Ann's final report, she made a suggested number of conditions. And then what the zoning board is, they really just took those specific conditions and put them in their decision. So, certainly check the decisions, you can see them, but you will see those same conditions in Ann's, is that right, Ben, right? Yeah.
Well, in either case, it's like 130, 140 pages of stuff we need to review.
Well, I will
So keep
try
that
to
in
get
mind.
that out to you guys
Cool.
as soon as possible,
no,
hopefully by the end of the week, to give you plenty of time to
Yeah, we have the
look
Ann Martin
over
stuff, I'm
everything.
just responding to, I agree it'd be good in some ways to get things moving faster, but it also is also a lot of material. So I'd ask for y'all's understanding that we can wait till next meeting to get any questions.
Sure.
And just so you understand the timeline, I worked on this project in 2017, 18, and it was almost ready to be approved by the zoning board, and there was a glitch, and Mass Housing withdrew their approval. Walter Erickson, the current developer, came on, and we kind of started the process again in 2019. So there was a gap there. I believe it was late 2019, we came in for the ANRAD, and then we came in early 2020 with our application with zoning. Ann Martin's information goes way back, all the way to 2017, some of the letters. So it is a long history, and that's just so you understand why it took so long. It kind of went almost through the approval, and then we had to, start over again and finalize it. So.
Okay. And then any final points from you guys before we tie this one up for the evening?
No. That's it.
Okay, cool. So then, when's our next meeting? The 7th?
September 7th, yes.
7th. All right, so
Make a motion to continue till 7 PM on September 7th.
thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
All right, I'm also voting yes. All right, good. So we'll do this again on the 7th.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Cool.
very much.
Thanks, guys. All right, Pete,
I'm going to do an exit left stage. Thank you very much.
thanks for coming,
Thank
Pete.
you.
Pete?
All right. Thank you guys for getting Pete put together. That worked out nicely.
Yes, yep, thank you.
And then, Martha, do you need anything else from us in, I don't know, any of this other stuff going on? Or, anything else? I mean, you're good for now, right?
Yeah, no, I think we're all set. I'll touch base with Sam, see if there's anything. I'll get this.
Okay, cool.
before Mary gets to recuse herself from all the fun ones.
Just so you know.
Come on, we'll make fun for Mary too at some point.
I know. I just like when the fun ones have Mary in it. It's just silly.
You want to do the intro, I know that there was sort of.
Alright, what
There's a bunch of your room.
what are we doing next? We'll go back to the beginning. So, Christopher Connolly at 9 43rd Street, an RDA to replace a failed retaining wall, install stone and seashells in yard, and replace existing invasive species with native plants.
What do you want me?
That's somewhere over there, it should
Be consistent?
and then at least they can hear you on the.
Yeah, so we had I bought the house 4 years ago, and 43rd Street, the end of 43rd Street, is elevated higher than 45th Street. Probably, just to guess, 6 to 8 feet. So there's this retaining wall system that was there, holding up the driveway. And it had been there for 60 plus years, according to my neighbors who have been there for generations. And, but it was failing and falling forward and cracking and breaking. And I hired a guy from where I live in Framingham to come up and finally replace that. And when he did, it was the week of 4th of July. And so he had his equipment in there removing the old wall, an old concrete set of stairs that was next to the house, hauled that all out. On the opposite side of the yard, there were lots of plants that don't belong in the area. There was a lot of ground covering, there was a tree, there was a burning bush, there was lots of honeysuckle throughout, the beach rose bushes and stuff there. So I just had it cleared all out, and then in September when we come back up and it's cooler, we're gonna plant some native plants in there, so it looks nice. One of the neighbors called the town, and I think it was Kara was her name, drove up and on the day we were completing the wall. And she said I had to come down here and file for a permit, so I did, and that's how I'm here.
Okay, straightforward, easy. Thanks. Mary, you haven't talked in a while. You want to start this off?
So I did have a chance to take a look at the site today, because I was driving around Plum Island, so I swung by, met your, the woman is that manages your building.
Yeah.
She was down on the beach, and I saw the work that had been done. I haven't seen a plan, I don't know, and there's a fair amount of work that has been done in a fairly large area, and an RDA seems insufficient to me to address all of this. But I don't know how much detail is maybe shown on the plan for the RDA, but there's a large area of vegetation on the dune that's been cleared. There's, a new retaining wall that's been constructed, and there's, some areas that are clearly recently graded for new driveway area. So, Samantha, do we have a plan for this project that we can look at, or?
I looked in the file that we had in conservation, and unfortunately the only thing that I really had was the RDA application that looks like it was filed online, that may have had plans attached to it, but I don't have them. The closest thing I have to plans is screenshots from my maps, which just shows the lot boundaries.
Yeah, that's, when I came down here, that's what Kara did. I filled it out right here.
Yeah.
And she generated the maps for me, and I drew the line where where I thought the house was. So it's 22 feet long, it's 4 feet high, and it cuts back in about 4 feet on the one end. So, and then the area that you're talking about that was graded, there was a walkway with stairs that was concrete, and then there was more concrete there was a concrete wall that was on that right side of those stairs. Those stairs are no longer there.
Right.
So, I thought it was, we put in stone, and we're gonna finally, when there is seashells, put the seashells in, but you can't get them.
Yeah, the problem is that we can't really approve anything based on a verbal description. We need to see it on a plan, and we need to determine whether it complies with the Wetland Protection Act and the Plum Island bylaw. And so I guess in this case, you're sort of caught between changing staff and everything else that's happened. There's been a fair amount of confusion in the conservation office, no fault of your own, but I guess my recommendation in a case like this would just be issue a positive determination require a notice of intent and get a proper filing.
Mhm.
Because we don't really have a plan to go by.
Yeah. All right. We'll go this way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, without the plan, how do we know?
I could show you what was there, and what was, you know, versus what's there now. It's considerably smaller
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
what it
That would
previously
be helpful to
been there.
see on the plan, so we can reference the plan in the decision and say we're approving it because, for these reasons. You know,
Right.
Maybe it's an improvement.
Yeah, I
and
just,
that would be good.
I
but
just
you
had
can't-
no-
Yeah,
it didn't even enter my mind that it needed to be, because something was already existing.
Yeah, so just to clarify what Barry said there, because you have dealt with the Wetlands Protection Act, like the myriad of options ahead of us, like the really nasty thing for us to do would be to say we're gonna put out an enforcement order and make you do stuff right away. But what we're trying to do is not do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But we're just saying that Mary, in her opinion, was just saying that given what's happened and what should happen, the best way and quick, and we can't do anything about it tonight for you, but the Sam can help you get together what you need to get together, but it probably should be this next level up from an RDA into an NOI. And so it's just gonna be some more paperwork and unfortunately like a little bit higher filing fee, but given the level of work and being on Plum Island, this is the unfortunate part of Plum Island, people living out there, is that almost everything needs to go through this process.
so it means hiring a surveyor, essentially, to do a plot plan of your property, showing where the retaining wall is, what the elevations are, what the, you know, what is the condition of the property that you're requesting, the final condition of the property, so that we could use that in our decision.
Okay.
So, and that has to happen, I mean, it should have happened, this is retroactive, so we can tell it to happen by a certain date, without issuing an enforcement order.
Yeah. So far, yeah.
I just say, I mean, some of the other elements, the planting plan, that type of thing is kind of useful.
Sure.
To what you're planning to put in there.
Do you know what the plants were that were removed?
Well, like I said, I mean, there was a whole giant oregano patch. I mean, it was crazy stuff in there. So, plus there were about 100 rabbits living underneath all the thorny bushes and the honeysuckle. It was just so overgrown. So, so when we had that equipment up to take out the wall, I just said clear it all out, and then we'll put in the normal native stuff that I don't need to really worry about maintaining, but we'll just make sure that it doesn't grow.
Right,
You know,
you can put in dune
out of
grass,
control.
you can put in.
Well, the dune grass is going to grow in anyway. I'm telling you, everything grows there like crazy. But you know, I was going to put in some of the plum bushes.
It's gonna come back whatever it was before. It's
Sure.
Probably what's gonna come back, because it's just the surface.
I-
is just
Yeah,
gonna
it's
apply.
sort of seed bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, yeah. Any beyond just giving him a positive and sort of having Sam hold his hand a little bit and walk him through the paperwork. Anything else going on?
I think we should give a reasonable date. and make a
Yeah.
filing on this.
So in terms of, you know, if we think through this now, do you think he could have anything put together for the 7th, or would it be the one after, 23rd?
I would say the 23rd.
23rd?
Or, no, it doesn't, I mean, I'm going to
September
21st.
21st?
21st.
It's gonna probably have to be a little longer.
Be longer than that.
Yeah, you
I would
want to
say
go, you want to punt one?
Filed by October, or whatever the meeting is.
Okay.
Because to get in line for a survey right now.
Yeah, and with, yeah, it's,
If we do every 3 weeks, that's gonna be October 12th.
Well, you have to file 2 weeks before the meeting, so it doesn't give you time.
all right, how about this, let's aim for filing by October 1st, and if it doesn't work, just let us know.
Sure. Do you have a recommendation for civil engineer?
We're not allowed to do
Yeah, I
that.
can
Yeah.
say.
Fine. Figure it out.
I mean, we can give you a list with names on it, but we can't tell you which people we like better.
That's perfect.
Yeah, we can give,
Right, we have one of those, don't we?
we should.
We should have one.
We should, I can try and track it down. It's
Well,
gonna mean,
Yeah.
I just have to
all I
look
really
through
need
all the.
is a Sam. All I
Yes.
need is your email,
Yeah.
Yep.
and I can email
And
you.
his email's on the RDA, right?
Should be.
Christopher Connolly.
.com.
So the way we can do this now would make a motion that we issue a positive determination requiring a notice of intent be filed by the filing deadline for the October meeting, whatever that is, and we can fill in the date when we determine
If we
what
stick to
that's-
every 3, it's October
Well,
12th.
we're doing 2 a month now. in
Are we going
September.
to 2 a month?
Yeah, when September kicks in, so we'll be doing,
So we don't have to make that, I think we just.
The first meeting in October.
yeah.
Okay.
It's filed in order to meet the deadline for the first meeting in October. That's the motion.
Good
Push
motion.
back your September plans.
Second.
First, second. Ayes.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
Hall.
writing down my email
I
first.
see that.
You probably don't have cards yet or anything, do you?
Nope, they're being ordered.
And then just, if you've got the RDA there, just make sure you've got his so that, you know.
I don't have the file with me right now.
Thank you
But
very
yeah,
much.
if you, the email would probably be, best for now, and then just send me your phone number and everything, and we
Sure.
can work things out from there.
Great, thank you.
Cool, thanks.
Have a good night.
You too.
So we have to come in and sign, or what's the, we
Yeah.
can have,
Oh,
or do we have a determination form already?
All the ones we pre-signed, apparently they,
Start down
alright, I'll keep going, are we ready?
Yep.
You guys can, alright. So we have Michael Kirkpatrick, at 8 12th Street in NOI to build a 9x15 shed. Pilings will be required to raise the shed 2 feet off the lowest elevation.
Mr. Kirkpatrick has requested a continuance. He was unable to be here tonight.
Okay.
here. Move to continue.
I did meet him as well, and, today, and.
You were busy.
Yeah, I just, they're not far apart from each other, he's out on his porch, his neighbor's porch. He apparently, there was a mix-up with the butter notification.
Yes.
So,
Okay,
that's why he's not here.
so technically maybe it's not open.
Technically, it's open and deficient in notification or something,
Yeah,
so we can still continue it.
okay. As long as we're not tripping over anything. Excuse me, thank you.
Okay, move to continue.
We got first. Somebody a second Dan on the continuance? Alright. I think Mary seconded Dan. She said we could.
Did I second something?
Yeah, you just, yeah.
Sounds good.
Alright, so then, just votes to continue this to the next meeting on the 7th, right? Thank you.
This is for,
Cool.
trustees.
Um,
The trustees.
Alright, moving down, we've got Coughlin Shea Builders at 7 Larkin Road. A continued ANRAD to determine if areas within a resource area can be classified into isolated land such as flooding, continued from July 15th meeting.
This is you guys trustees.
Okay, yes, thank you. And then, yeah, I'll put my own pad. Alright, what?
Good evening,
Third
Keith Melvin,
trustees.
Millennium Engineering. As you mentioned, since the last time we were in front of the commission, a few of us made it out for the site walk. We walked the majority of the resource areas on site. And really our biggest question, and I know we weren't really able to discuss on site, is the potential connection between the isolated wetland and the DPW bordering on the Parker River.
Yeah,
I'll hand it off to Mark West to describe that in a little bit more detail.
Okay, I'll take this up so you can hear me better. So,
I didn't even recognize you in there. I was like, is he playing Ultimate? Like, he didn't even need the mask on.
We're stealth.
Yeah.
secret agent, okay.
No bright orange
So-
vest.
We were out there and the question is, what kind of connection is this? Is this a connection that's a stream? Is it not? I had mentioned to you that I was out there 4 different times. In the fall, twice in September of 2020, and in March 26th of 2021, and then again on 5/12. Okay, and I know it was a little bit of a dry. Well, it started drying out in May Yeah, the last one was May 12th, in May, and then got dry in June. So what I dug through my files, and I had told you that I looked at this place several times because I was like, is there a connection or is there not? Just like I did here. And I actually took pictures of, on May 12th of the 4 pictures. So I have the picture locations, and some of you are going to have to share. Sorry, I didn't know how many. Picture locations, and then 4 pictures that show you exactly what it looks like in May. And I understand it was dry and starting to get dry, but even the fact that no leaves had moved the entire winter, the fall, the winter, well actually I was there earlier in the fall, so that summer, that fall, that winter, and all spring, there was no movement of any leaves, no indication of a stream. So my issue now is, it seems to me like this is maybe a 1-in-a-year event, or 1 every 2-year event, or whatever. Is that really a stream, or is it just a flow path that might occur, that you might find in upland conditions too? And I know it's looked at more critically because here and here, but I thought this evidence was useful in the decision-making process. To me, if there's no real stream that's there on any regular basis, and during one large event, it actually pushed some leaves aside, I had trouble thinking that that's a stream and that's a connection, and I guess I think this information might help in the decision-making process.
Cool, thank you. Let's go this way this time. Dan, you want to go first?
I don't really.
All right, fair enough. I just looked. There might be a point on photo 3 that catches my eye, that maybe there's some leaf movement, not a stream, obviously. It's like 1 leaf out of 100, but I saw a little something on 3. But we can come back to that after everyone else goes. To the point on the sidewalk, I take your point. I think, though, that when we continued walking, after seeing what we saw, every minor depression that we walked through, I was looking at, for the same thing, to see if that little minor catchment off the upland, that channeled through the rocks, did anything. Just to see if there's no wetland upstream, there's nothing going on. Maybe the same thing happened. Maybe it was just wash out, blow out kind of situation. And I didn't see anything even vaguely resembling that anywhere else. And so to my mind, even if it's only gonna be, your quote unquote, right, the 100-year storm that now we're gonna have every 2 weeks, So I feel like future tense might be more useful than past tense when we think about, precipitation, but that's my take.
Yeah, so as we talked about the field, I just pulled up the stream gauge for the Parker River, which is, a couple 100 yards from that site. And that is my issue with when the photos were taken, is it's just this ridiculously dry period from really until, I did, what did I do here? I just pulled up August of last summer through the beginning of July. And really, you're talking about abnormally dry for almost that entire period, with a small wet spell in December and January, until we get to all the June rain this year. So it's just a really hard, I was on the site. What I saw was very much a connection to me when we were on site. And I appreciate that there's photos, and I appreciate you took the photos and you did your job when you were being paid to do your job, and you're doing your job, and I appreciate that a lot. I just know that, when I look at everything I can look at, I saw a connection, and unfortunately, the period you were out there doing it, I wouldn't expect to see a connection. Whether there is one every year, every other year, or not. But what I saw was a connection.
Fair enough.
So that's kind of where I am on it.
Frank, what do you wanna do? I mean, you missed the sidewalk, do you have any questions in general about anything
I'm
else?
just curious how this stretch of property impacts what
Yeah, I can probably
is planned.
talk to you a little bit about that. So this process, this is an ANRAD process, just to confirm wetland boundaries, so preliminary for planning purposes. That blob, and that's in the middle, that green wetland island there, that's shown there, if it doesn't connect to another wetland or water body down gradient of it, then it's not jurisdictional at all under the Wetland Protection Act. So critical determination at that location.
I understand.
So we, we walked the site, I had a chance to walk it with Mark, most of the other resource boundaries, we had some minor changes, I think, that are not included in this plan at this point. 'Cause we
Sort
wanna
this out first.
Sort this out first, so this plan would be updated regardless of what decision we make on this issue of the stream or not tonight. Now, I thought about it a lot, and it's my opinion, and it's been my experience with DEP, that an intermittent stream has to be it has to have channel forming processes. You have to be able to see it, observe it in the field, to be able to walk it continuously. So it can't just die out into the ground. It can't become sheet flow or start as sheet flow. It has to have a defined bank and a defined channel from point A to point B. And I didn't find that was entirely the case in this location. It's very stony. It's clear that there was water moving from the wetland above to the wetland below. Some of that was flowing as sheet flow. Some of it was channelized, but in the barest sense that the ground wasn't really channelized. It just had pushed leaves. The surface of the ground, and we had pounding rain prior to that, so not surprising. So, my take was that there wasn't enough there to call it a channel. That's my take on it. I don't think that most times there isn't a minimum or maximum time frame that it has to flow under the regulations. It doesn't say it must flow annually or it must flow, we ran into this issue in other towns as well. It doesn't say anything about that. It just says it has the capacity to convey flow from one point to another. It has to have an observable channel. So,
If you look at other scientific descriptions of streams, it usually talks about the bank, the channel, and the movement of sediments over the ground, scouring more than leaves, scouring the ground.
yeah.
And that's what this didn't do.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Wetland Protection Act regulations has like 2 sentences on what a stream is. It really is a minimal description on what a stream is. It's left to your discretion to decide.
Of
So,
course, part of the course.
Yeah.
Why not make it easier?
Mhm.
Alright. So, what do we do?
Well, there's a couple different ways you can deal with this. One is, we can do a straw poll, just, to give the applicants an indication of which way we're leaning on this, and they can decide what they wanna do when they come back, whether they wanna continue to show it on the plan the way that they are showing it, and take their chances with the decision, and take it up with the EP if it doesn't go their way. I think it would be fair to give some indication of how everybody is feeling about it. And I think how Ryan and Ben are feeling about it, and unless they've changed their minds, and then we don't know about Ben and Frank. I mean, Dan and Frank.
I don't know if I'm allowed to go into this. I
Was
think
this,
started before.
did we open this before we came on?
Yeah, I think so.
You only had one hearing, right?
2.
Oh, you had two?
Yeah, the last Zoom, and then we were at the last in person.
I
Yeah,
wasn't here for
Yeah.
those.
Okay. Well, we have enough to vote on it now.
yeah. We don't go back. You're not recused from this one. What do you think, Dan?
I was on the sidewalk. I learned a lot. I think it's a close call. I'm sort of when I hear Mary's rationale on the whole thing, it kind of makes more sense to me than, it was pretty limited evidence of any substantial movement or connection to my way of thinking.
All right, so then, yeah, two give or take at the moment, but, you know, it's a borderline enough issue that
We could also have a
we could do a
third-party
peer review kind of
if-
thing.
on just that issue, that's something that we felt
You
strongly
know,
about.
because it is a fine line, it is a weird balancing act on that one.
Yeah, I think where I'm getting hung up is that, like, what I saw was a connection between the two wetlands, and then you take into account everything else. And
Right, it's dry.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just that, you know, I appreciate Mary's interpretation and then the ambiguity of what a stream is in the WPA and everything else. And I wouldn't say that I'm like firmly,
Yeah.
you know, I'm trying to pick up everything that's.
I'd rather make the mistake of calling it a stream than make the mistake of not calling it a stream, though.
Yeah.
Just on my perspective, and then we could work through that mistake.
DEP can say that
DEP
you
can
guys
tell
are
me
dumb
off.
and
I
wrong.
don't
Yeah,
mind.
exactly. All right.
But anyway, so turning back to you guys, or anybody here for this one? No. Okay. What do you guys? And do you have a preference? Do you have a thought? Do you have any more to
Well,
throw in the pot?
I think we provided evidence. I mean, I guess when you say I'd rather call it this way to be more protective or whatever, the important thing as a scientist is to get it correct.
Yeah.
And it either is or is not connected, and either is or is not a stream. And if it doesn't have enough features of a stream, then it's not a stream. We could hire another consultant and provide more of a second opinion. I mean, I do reviews a lot up in New Hampshire, and next thing you know, there's 4 different people. But the bottom line is, it's what is the most accurate interpretation. And so.
Right, and biologically, you know, I'm agreeing with you that I don't think you would call it a stream because, you know, we didn't see the activity. It'd be intermittent. Like, I don't think anyone's claiming to call it.
It's like a perennial intermittent at the very best.
No, but even an intermittent stream has a scoured channel with a bank
Right.
and sediment movement.
Right, and I saw the channel. I mean, we all saw the channel. You know, the question gets into bank and sediment movement and all these other standards. And because, you know, I wasn't standing there when the channel was formed, maybe it was moving sediment. I mean, I don't know. And we're not discussing it ecologically, we're discussing it regulatorily. And so they're very different creatures, which is annoying.
I guess I wish Massachusetts had things better to find
Yeah, you
Ditto.
than allowing all this sort of whatever instead of just it either is or it isn't.
yeah.
So, and I guess my concern when it goes to a third party is, you know, it seems like a lot of additional money that might cost, but I guess if it goes to a third party, you know, what do you say then if it's, you know, ultimately you guys have to make the decision.
Well, so you guys have to come back anyway. Yeah, they have to come back anyway.
Yeah.
They have to make adjustments to the plan based on some of the other changes that we made. I think you come back with all, your best case, and, you know, we take a vote on it at that point, so.
But right
you
now
kind
we're
of-
tied.
You kind of know what, you've heard a little bit about where we're.
Oh, I
the
appreciate
numbers are
that.
coming from, so you gotta make the call, how you wanna handle it from there.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Make
I
sense?
think
Yeah, it makes sense.
good. If you have any other questions, you can ask the questions before you.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't feel like we were telling you how to be quiet now.
No?
yeah, and you don't have to leave now. I mean, you know, we can.
I've had too much fun already.
We do have other people.
Okay, hopefully this was helpful and we'll try to get even
Yeah.
more
It
information.
was, thanks for the photos.
Thank you very much.
But we will likely come back, keeping this as isolated for the proposed ANRAD with the additional changes that you added.
Okay, and then do the members have permission to access the property again if they need, when they want to take another look at it?
Yeah.
I thought we always had.
Yeah, I guess we just need to contact somebody to let them know we're on the property.
I'll go look at it like 5 more times.
Yeah, okay. Just in case somebody.
I thought you said you were trying to save your client money.
That's okay, I'm cheaper because I'm from New Hampshire.
Oh, that's.
All right, so here, somebody make a motion to continue this one then.
I'll make a motion to continue this hearing until, what did we say the next date was, 7 PM?
7 PM on the
September
7th.
7th.
Yes,
7/7.
7/7, no, what? 7 PM on 9/7.
9/7.
Yeah,
7/9/7.
yeah.
9/7/7.
And when you come back, I'm sorry, we're going back to
Nobody
discussion
seconded it
on
yet.
this, but thank you. We need the data on the IOSF
Yes.
for the.
Yeah, we were kind of waiting to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we need that information too, because if it's not connected, it could be isolated on flooding, we need those calculations as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Yeah, plan B, after you get through the first detail, what's the next one?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so we got a first, you want a second?
Second.
All right, hands in the air. Everybody voting for that to continue, vote. Mary, you need to vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, what do we got next? Steve DeSalvo, 16 and 20 Northern, no DEP number yet. An NOI to nourish the dune and low areas with compatible sand, estimated to fill an area 130 by 50 and 1.5 feet deep. To ensure existing dune grass will grow, to plant additional dune grass and install sand fencing to encourage dune growth and stability.
They do have a file number.
Does anybody know Steve DeSalvo? Going once, going twice, okay.
Could you just, you had some communication on that, is that?
I have a letter on my desk that was just some correspondence between them and DEP to modify the notice of intent application.
When they issued the file number, there were a number of comments, but there's more information needed for file.
Right.
In order to make it complete, as far as DEP is concerned, about elevations, sourcing of sand, plantings, there's more detail that they were requesting.
Which is the information that I have
They
downstairs, yeah,
provided that.
yes.
So did they request a continuance?
I have not seen anything from them requesting one.
I feel like this is 3 meetings we've had radio silence on DeSalvo.
Yeah, I think they weren't intending to do this work until later in the fall, so I don't think they were in a big hurry, is my understanding. So maybe we contact them and say, we'll continue it, but not again after this.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Or at least unless they give Sam,
No,
explanation.
that's what I mean, yeah, it's just saying that, hey,
Yeah.
where are we on this, what's your
Because
plan
if
moving
it's
forward?
a failure to, proceed,
The planning time is arriving soon,
yeah,
Yeah.
in a few weeks.
right.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Somebody motion that.
Move to continue, right?
Yeah, after all that stuff, yeah.
Move to continue
7
With
7 PM.
notification.
with notification to the applicant.
Beautiful. Awesome. Vote yes. Ayes. Awesome. Thank you. I'm just looking up at our audience. I'm gonna move the calendar around here and jump to the enforcement order all the way to the bottom for Justin Leonard, so that you don't have to wait around.
It's been over a year at this point, what's a couple more minutes?
Oh man.
And 4 conservation agents. So,
We're on the same page, man. This is taking too long. We gotta figure out what we're doing and then actually do it, more or less.
so I guess I'm here to find out what you guys are waiting for from me, information wise.
Well, yeah, let's sort of do like a general update, right? So as far as we know, there's still no DEP number, right?
This is an enforcement order.
Right. But
So we
is
don't-
that
we
gonna be
don't
part of the
really-
conversation?
No.
We suggested that you withdraw the notice of intent. We issued a friendly enforcement order allowing you to go ahead and do the work, and it was subject to certain conditions.
Right.
And you have a copy of that enforcement order with you?
That was my question.
I haven't been given anything.
You never received it?
Right.
I
so
never
he fell
received
between the cracks
anything.
of,
So you're.
The last thing I have was when Bill, was it Bill Holt?
yeah,
And I met at my property on 429 and modified my notice of intent
to be a restoration of the dune versus restoration of the parking area, and that was the last information that has been
So
transpired.
you fell through the cracks?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
So he just needs an enforcement order allowing him to do the work. You just wanna put in the sand, cut, put in a
I'd
couple
love
of
to have my
plants.
parking area back that was clearly there, and Bill Holt agreed, but apparently that's not gonna happen, so at this point, I can't spend any more time doing this.
Right, no, this is, and instead of going through that, we're gonna go through this and just tell you what to do so you can do it, and then we won't do.
So just to clarify, this was all, at this point now, was all a waste of time and money on my part, correct?
You can still proceed with that. You
Well,
can, that was
at-
given an option to, you were given an option to withdraw that and just do it, you know, because you couldn't get a file number with the information you already submitted. There wasn't enough information, there wasn't a suitable plan, we couldn't get a DEP file number
Nobody asked me for more information.
for that. Well, when you file the notice of intent, a copy goes to DEP, they
Mhm.
review it. We can't take any action until they issue a file number on it,
Mhm.
saying, yeah, it meets minimum requirements. That didn't happen, it's still languishing there, and
Well,
DEP without
like,
file
did
number.
you send it to DEP?
Yeah. I sent out to originally, this all started with Doug Packard, and then got tossed onto Bill Holt. I worked with Bill Holt, I filed all of my paperwork, sent out notice of intent, sent it to the DP, sent out notice to my butters. Everything is in the emails, I have them all back and forth with Bill Holt. Everything was sent out, everything I was ever asked for, I gave, I did.
Yeah.
I asked questions, nobody could ever answer my questions. I never received anything back, and now we're at an enforcement act. I'm so fed up with this, and it sucks, because Bill Holt, everybody in the beginning said, you didn't have a parking area there. We went back on Google Maps and couldn't see it. Well, I'm third generation in this house. We've clearly owned it longer than Google Maps. The parking area was there. Bill Holt came out, he did a site walk. I wasn't even there. He looked, he dug in the ground, he said, yup, you're right, there's gravel there. He talked to a contractor, I assume it was Hartnett or somebody who worked for John Hartnett, because it was the water and sewer installation. They said, there was a parking area there when we did water and sewer. We dug right through it to do the water sewer installation. I've been told it's non-conforming, but I haven't been told why it's non-conforming, or why I can't have it back because it was non-conforming. Bill Holt told me, well, I'm going to adopt the building inspector's non-conforming rule of a year or two of dilapidation, or however he worded it, it's gone. But apparently there wasn't an actual rule on this as far as a parking area, not a structure.
Do you have any photos? showing
They're
us?
all in the emails that went through conservation, and
Yeah,
I have piles of photos.
Showing it as a parking area.
yeah. If I'm remembering right, and by all means correct me if I'm wrong, but basically it was like a grandfathering situation where, they weren't parking in it for a while, the sand blew in, the dune took it, and so like there was a certain amount of a window of time where the dune could have been dug out, and like the grandfathering allowed for the dune destruction.
Yeah.
And
But
they just
nobody was
missed the
able to tell me
window.
that time frame.
Yeah, so like that's what Doug had told us.
So-
So like when it was almost didn't matter if it used to be a parking lot or not, because it had been dune long enough so that it was dune, and now it's dune and you
Right.
can't dig it out.
Right.
But what is that time frame? I mean, at this point, it's an enforcement act, I'm
At the
over.
time of filing, it's the condition of the resource at the time of filing.
Yeah.
So if it is a dune at the time that you file, then it's a dune, and we have to regulate it as a dune.
Because I think you're presenting like something that if it was any of us would be like, man, we want our parking space back. It's just like, what can we do?
Right.
And so, yeah, so I just looked at the DEP thing, and they're saying basically what you just said, no file number. Plans are not adequate for review, needs site plan showing the extent of the parking lot.
So you have two choices. One is spend a bunch more money and hire somebody to help you to finalize the permitting because it's incomplete. And try to make a case to get a parking space, which you may or may not get. Or don't spend any more money on permitting, just accept the enforcement order that we're gonna give you that says the area has to be replanted. And, so a truck full of sand, it's not a lot of
Truck
sand.
full of sand, some plugs.
And some plugs. and you're done with us, but, you know, you don't get your parking area.
Mhm.
So you might wanna consult with somebody like there's consultants right here sitting in the room that they might be able to help you.
Mike's like, I don't want any part of that.
At this point, after 14, 15, 16 months, whatever it's been now.
Right, and we call you every 3 months, we're like, hey man, what's going on? You're like, what do you mean, what's going on? What's going on with you? Like,
Yeah, it's, so,
Yeah.
I guess we'll go with the Enforcement Act. I just kind of wanted to be heard on how much it sucks since you weren't here from the beginning, you weren't here from the beginning, you weren't here from the beginning.
Yeah.
Half the people in the room I'm presenting to had no clue about this from the start, just adding to my frustration.
right. Yeah, and
So-
totally agree with you and sympathize, because you're right, there's no reason any of this should have gone the way it did. It just has.
Sucks. Plum Island was always the place I always wanted to spend the rest of my life, and this has put so much frustration and stress on my family. I'm almost ready to sell the house, and we've owned it since 1959. So I guess we'll continue with the Enforcement Act, and I get screwed out of the parking area, but it's over and done with.
You, like I said, you can continue to pursue it.
I do not
Just-
have the patience to
Yeah.
deal with this anymore. If it's taken 16 months to get to the point where I have an Enforcement Act or I can continue, I don't have the time or resources to continue
Yeah.
for another 16 months, 2 years, however it's gonna go, so.
Yep, I understand.
I apologize for an attitude, but it's been a really frustrating process, so.
Understandable, Mr. Blair.
Understand, yes.
I guess we'll continue with the Enforcement Act. What do I need to provide?
You,
So-
we do the work and give it to you.
Okay, are we going off of the last plan that Bill Holt gave me on April 29th?
Which, if.
I think he was
show
still trying to
us-
help you with the filing at that point,
Question
right?
for the board.
Well, this was now filing to restore the dune, not the parking area, because Bill had basically told me in a couple meetings we had
So
in black and
I
white.
do have copies of the sketch that he did, and that was, so the original filing was for the parking space.
Correct.
Which got denied.
In
The,
so many words, yeah.
the intention for the sketch was to file a new notice of intent with DEP to do the restoration. And I do have that, the sketches in here.
Okay, so all we need to do really is say in the enforcement order that you're directed to do the work that's shown on the plan by X date. And, you know, provide documentation that it's complete.
Okay.
Photograph,
Yeah,
whatever.
there is an enforcement order in the Dropbox.
There is one.
And it's
May, was
Right, but it
ever
never-
issued.
there's nothing
signed,
attached to it.
never issued, and it looks like it's not, it didn't
Yeah, it's not.
cite the plan, it doesn't look
Yeah, it's
adequate.
incomplete.
Our goal is gonna be to give you everything you need to do the work so that you can just call up somebody and say, this is what needs to
So
happen, or do it.
By,
So-
just, you know, December 1st, January 1st, tell us what, you know, what reasonable date is, because the planting has to happen.
Well, it depends on what I'm being asked to do.
Whatever was on the plan, the
Well,
restoration.
I've gotten 3 plans.
Okay, so we're talking about the restoration plan.
Bill
of the
Holt gave me
dune.
3.
I don't know which one it is then.
We'll look at the
The
plan.
most recent one was this one that I have here that he gave to me, if you guys wanna see.
Yeah,
it.
please,
Yeah.
please come.
Originally, he told me 18 and a half yards of sand, and came up and I looked at it with him and I said, there's no way I'd be blocking the street.
Yeah.
So he redid it again and came up with a lower value. And then never told me about that. I found that out, I believe, by talking with you, that you found, it was either you or Kara, told me there was a second one that I never even saw. This is the third revision of it, to my understanding.
So that
was
I
5
did talk to
yards.
him, that second revision that was incorrect, that I said that I had in here, he did say that that was it was a typo.
Okay.
So,
So my understanding is that this is the third and final revision. I don't know if these are exactly the same, but it should be about 5.2 cubic yards, plugs every 18
It's
inches.
tiny.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
It's,
So
so,
to just be done with it, I mean, it's five yards of sand,
So-
and some planting, so
Yeah.
what's a reasonable timeframe for you to complete this?
well, what is the planting season? I don't exactly know on that. I thought it was
Yeah,
October-ish
It's-
or
It's even later. than
March-ish.
that. Yeah.
Both. Well, if we say to try to do it for the October planting, would that work? Could you do it? Would that be?
Sure, I'll find a way because I'm done with this.
Okay, so then if we say like right at
December December 1st.
December 1st?
And
Okay,
Yeah.
to have
sure.
something to us by December 1st.
okay.
And then
What do I need
you
to,
can't get the plans.
In email with a picture, right?
okay?
Email photos saying the work is done.
Receipts,
Sam will go
proof of
down
everything.
and inspect it, and if everything looks okay, then we'll send you a letter saying you've complied with the enforcement order.
Okay, receipts for amount of material
The
and,
sand and the plugs, that's the receipt.
okay.
Yeah.
It'll be a
What-
visual inspection.
What constitutes clean sand? Because I had this argument, or not argument, but I had a conversation asking Bill Holt 5 times, and he never once answered my
It's
question
the
about it.
place in Ipswich, right?
So I work for SBS New England. We
Bentley
build
Warren
bridges, we
and-
use the cleanest sand you can get, because you can't have contaminants making concrete. Bill mentioned to me when we were talking about that, I said, is that clean sand? He was like, well, as long as it's clean. I go, well, I don't know what that
It
means.
just needs to be the
But
same
then-
grain size as what's there now.
He told me, he goes, well, the DPW has a lot over here by the pumps, by the lift station for the water and sewer, where all the street sweepings go, from when they sweep the roads. Maybe you can buy that off them. And I thought to myself, street sweepings constitute clean fucking sand? Like, this is what I've been dealing with
Where's the sand?
from day one.
It's in Ipswich, right?
Bentley Warren
Bentley
is
Warren.
the
Bentley Warren.
local supplier, and
Okay.
it's what they call the Presby sand. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just tell
What's
them
the
what
name
you
again?
want sand for Plum
Bentley
Island.
Warren, Presby, Presby.
Presby.
or it's just sand for
Plum Island sand.
They know what to
They'll,
give you.
Okay.
they pretty much do every one. You know, we're sorry that wasn't asked of us, so we couldn't tell you that.
Yeah, that was 5 times I asked him that question. He, oh, clean sand. What is clean sand? Because my definition and yours might be different.
Very much, yeah, it says that.
And I
Yeah.
don't want to be dumping in sand that I have to then dig out again.
If you have any question about it, you can just communicate with Sam about the
Okay.
sand, and she can confirm whether or not the sand source that you want to
Yeah,
use.
and you
is-
can put this in his letter, so he doesn't need to memorize it standing in front of us or watch our
Yeah.
video.
Yeah, Bentley Warren, Presby sand.
And then,
That's my only copy of that.
how many,
so.
oh, okay, yeah.
I do have that in here.
That is the only so everything else was done electronically except that. That Bill met me out there and that was the only copy I was given of that.
Okay.
So I would appreciate
And I,
that
can
one
I,
back.
can I just take a look at that and make sure that it is in fact the same thing?
Yeah, what's the square footage on this? How many plugs does he need?
The area that I dug out was, I think, 8 feet by 20 feet is what my original plans
473
stated, something like that.
by 1. What's 473 divided by 1.5?
What?
But it's
So
not, that's not
300
record.
It's like 300 plants.
Doesn't need to be in the plan. Really?
1 per 1.5.
So if you just Google Presby sand.
I'm not sure.
Right, like 473 divided by 1.5 is
Yeah.
like
I
300.
don't know, you have to use.
Ish, I mean,
I
roughly.
don't know what that term is.
Yeah.
Thanks. And then it looks like you need 315 plugs of beach grass.
Okay. And that I was told you can get at Martinetti's, I think, is what Bill Holt had told me in Salisbury, right over the chain bridge.
Right? Is that his name?
They're not there anymore, so.
What happened? I haven't been over that one in a while.
Dune grass?
Yeah.
No, but there are other sources, I can give you,
Okay.
get that information.
Pearson would have.
Yeah.
Pearson.
Nurseries in
Dune
Maine.
grass?
Usually, if you need
That's-
such a small amount that it'd be good to piggyback it with another order, so, we can try to source that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are in agreement that DPW swept up sand off the street does not constitute
No,
clean
let's
sand?
not use
That's not good
that.
sand.
Okay, that was my assumption as well. I was shocked when he mentioned that as a suggestion.
Good instinct.
So,
Alright, so then he's got 315 pieces of grass, he's got 5 yards of sand. On that letter, you can put, I don't know, 3 or 4 nurseries that you can call up.
Suggestions.
Yeah. What else do we need to cover for you? I mean, it's sand and grass. There's
yeah.
not much else to it.
So I would make a motion to issue an enforcement order, compelling the work described on the plan that you have, for this restoration of this dune be completed by December 1st, and that we identify in the letter potential sources of plant material and sand.
Beautiful. Awesome. All right. Hands in here for an eye. Okay, cool.
All right.
Good plan?
Look,
Thank you. Once again, I apologize for my frustration, but it's been tough.
Yeah,
understood.
That's
Totally
Bill's
understand.
daughter, just so you know.
It's okay.
Sorry, it's been a long road.
It's all right.
So-
He said the same thing, and we are very much in agreement that it was something that needed to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have any questions with what comes to you and you're unclear about anything, please just reach out to us and we'll
Yeah.
help you
Okay.
get through it.
Or if they ran out of sand, we'll find you some more sand.
All right.
And we
Thank
will
you, Mr.
we'll
Lyon.
call DPW.
Again, apologies.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Alright, what are we up to next? We got Town of Newbury, Orchard Street Creek Crossing Restoration, 050-1356. Town's not here, town is here. You the town?
We're here.
Yeah.
Mike DeRosa and Evan Gavendran from DeRosa Environmental.
I see what you're saying right here. Put it right there. Oh, I see.
Since the last meeting,
I thought, oh, it went this way, we're looking to the other side, yeah.
so since the last meeting, we went through the MEPA process and addressed the issues there. We got their certificate. Major changes where we took out, we were talking about doing riprap, if you remember, on the crossing. I guess I should start with a little bit of intro. So this is the crossing under Orchard Street. We're increasing the size of the
And did you
culvert.
tell the camera who you are?
Mike DeRosa, DeRosa Environmental, and Evan Gavendran, DeRosa Environmental, representing the town of Newbury. So, this is the culvert crossing on Orchard Street. We presented to the commission at the last meeting, I think back in June. We went through the MEPA process in the interim. We got our MEPA certificate. And the major changes to the plan are we had riprap along the walls, I guess on the down gradient side, seaward side, and the agencies didn't like that idea. So we took that out. We provided them with a salt marsh restoration plan, which this is, which you guys have. And those are really the two major changes. No riprap in the restoration. We're requesting the order of conditions tonight, and then we're going to file the 401 and the Army Corps permit. One of the questions the commission had was to talk to Tom Woodruff, who is at Governor's, about the redirection of the detour. So we did that, and his only concern was pedestrian crossing, so they're obviously going to be attentive to that. And then Division of Marine Fisheries had a time of year restriction from March to June, and we'll comply with that. That's it. Did I miss anything?
MassDOT approved the plans also, so.
MassDOT approved the plans.
And Heritage, they have their species habitat there?
It's just outside of
Just
our,
outside.
yeah. I don't know if you need a copy of this, but this is the stamp.
Mike, there were a number of, oh, you okay, fine?
Yeah, I mean, we started with Dan last time, I was gonna start with you.
There were a number of DEP comments, have those all been addressed? I know they had questions about how you identify foul wag and low flow channels.
Yeah,
and all
so
that.
we
That's all
did,
been
we did
resolved
all
now?
that, yeah, we did all that with Pam Merrill.
Okay.
And then she submitted her final comments to the, as part of the MEPA process, and those were the riprap issues and the replication.
Okay. And are you comfortable that the slope is gonna be stable enough without riprap?
Yeah, the engineers looked at it and they said, yeah,
They can do
we'll
it?
deal with it, yeah. So, because the bridge is on, remember, it's supported by these columns that are gonna be set pretty deep, so.
And what's the construction schedule, do you know?
That I don't know. Do you know?
I don't know the exact time frame, but the time of year restriction requires it between March and June.
No, outside March.
Outside
March
March
and
and
June, yeah. so,
Okay, and
and
then,
it's being funded by,
Right?
Oh, what is that?
Snifwick, isn't it?
No.
No?
that's
it's,
not DER?
it's
No.
funding money, yeah.
Okay.
It's funding from the state for,
Oh, yeah, it's resiliency money.
resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
CZM.
Make
postal
your
resilience,
Yeah,
yeah.
CZM.
And did you commit to, any monitoring protocol in the filing with either UVA or what's in the notice of intent? As far as the salt marsh, construction go, it's just restoration in place.
That can be included as a condition.
Right, that's what I'm getting at, is whether we need to do any special conditions for, the salt marsh restoration. It's not, you're not creating new salt marsh, it's just gonna be restoring in place.
Just restoring.
Okay,
So I would do the standard 2-year.
yeah, okay.
So, here, I'll go in order. Frank,
I don't have any questions.
you sure?
Yeah.
I mean, alright. Judgment,
No, I think that as long as all these, the DEP list is really extensive, so as long as they're all.
Yeah, it sounds like if it made it through NEPA with
Yeah.
Pam Merrill's comments, and they've addressed them all.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I think, way outside of my expertise, but within the jurisdiction, would just be, you're calling for all Spartina alternate floor, is that gonna handle, is that the
Yeah,
higher,
it'll be-
is that the higher?
No, that's a low marsh.
That's the lower marsh,
Yeah.
okay, because it's just gonna get wetter there, that's just
Yeah.
what I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah.
couldn't remember which, in my head too.
I remember this coming up back when I was on the finance committee, that this project needed to be done, I just haven't followed it since then.
I know, it's infrastructure, it needs to be done, it's a
Yeah.
low spot, it's a sagging.
So the town must be chipping in something for it.
They probably did, I mean, I'm guessing that James is doing something as match. The
I'm sure there's a match.
DPW is
Yeah.
probably providing
Yeah.
match, but it's part of this is part of one of a couple different crossings that are all bundled together under the PI Ipswich Essex umbrella through Ipswich River Watershed Association, they're kind of.
Right.
helping do
Yeah,
it.
Wayne Castaway sort of.
Yeah. They've got a bunch of different ones going. So yeah, I don't think I have any questions, thanks for, I think it was just the salt marsh, making sure that it was a little, as Brian was saying with an earlier case, it's a forward-looking planting plan, that's great. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah.
so, I don't think this is a relevant question on a certain level, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. What's the difference between this bridge and this crossing and the brand new fancy bridge over to Martin Burns? Like, that's a big bridge
Not
for,
familiar with the Martin
The
Burns.
Kent Island one they did, no, you're not thinking about Martin.
Oh, the
Burns,
Kent Island one.
Bridge.
well, that's Martin Burns.
No, it's not, it's Kent, that's William
That's-
Ford.
that's
It's
Kent
part of the-
Island.
It's Kent Island, which is part of the William Ford, wildlife
it's
management.
That's in our neighborhood.
Then it might say, literally, it's about 100 yards away from that
Alright,
bridge.
whatever. So the other estate land that someone
Yeah.
was named after. Yeah, hey, what's the difference?
Much
It's a-
wider channel over there.
It's a wider channel, and
Yes.
I think it was Fish and Wildlife did that one.
DFW did that one.
To access Kent, because the prior bridge was like impassable.
Yeah.
And,
So they couldn't do
but
anything.
I don't know why they did such a,
Well, they could span it, it's a much wider channel there, and they were able to span it and put a big arch in there. There's no utilities to deal with, there's no tie-in to other roadway and, segments or anything like that, they had the
they could do it.
flexibility, they
yeah.
could make it as high as they wanted to make it there.
Yeah.
You can't do that, here you're limited with the,
Existing grades.
the existing grades of the, approaches and the utilities that are in the road.
Yeah, I mean, this is why it's not gonna change anything.
Yeah.
It's just cause I'm thinking, on the map, looking at the scour pools and thinking of, they've made that big bridge to try to reduce the creation of the scour pools. And this, I don't know if it's just like smaller channels, smaller bridges, it's sort of equivalent scale down, or if, in the long run, it's still a low spot and a low bridge, and in 5 years or 10 years, we're gonna look back at this and be like, oh, well, meh. But I mean, everybody else has approved it, so like, what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's within our jurisdiction to say, like, the forward-thinking thing to do would be to dump an extra $100,000 and bring up the grade, and you have a gradual increase in grade on either side, so you can make it higher. I think that might have been a smart thing for the town to do, but they're not doing it, and so it's kind of, I think that from where I'm concerned.
Is it water under the bridge?
It is literal water. For me, the check mark is, I think from our resources, is like, they're not choking down on it's not gonna be creating a lot of scouring or become a passage impediment for aquatic organisms or affect the resource area because it's too narrow. They've made it an appropriate width that matches the stream channel out of the location.
Right.
And so I think that's the most I can ask for in this situation.
And they did a detailed hydrologic study.
They did the H&H.
And everything else.
Yeah, they did the H&H.
That's where they ended up.
It's an appropriate width and an appropriate height.
Exactly.
It'd be great, I think, like you said, 20 years from now, there's gonna be some town admin who's like, why did that happen?
We're gonna get cursed out so hard.
Yeah, anyways, so, no, we're not.
But we might curse ourselves, we might
No,
be
it's
here
okay.
20 years.
All right,
That's what
I'm
it
gonna,
is.
let's let Dan talk.
You guys are a tough act to follow. As one, it looks like, you've done everything you had to do. I just kind of wonder if some of that stuff ends up in our file, the MIPA
You
stuff.
should have all of
Yes.
that, yeah.
They're required to.
As long as it's documented what
Yeah.
you're gonna do, I think, great job.
Alright, so then, we got conditions that you wanna do for the regrowth, the 2-year. Anything else?
Yeah, a couple of conditions. So I think that we need a construction schedule when it's available and
Yeah.
like 72-hour notice to the town, to the Conservation Commission, so that you can do an inspection and meet the contractor and understand everything that they're proposing to do, so that we can have eyes on it. during-
Pre-construction meeting.
Right, and then.
Isn't that one of the normal?
It's all standard, yeah.
I don't know in our board, if it's in our boilerplate, but I think we can make a motion to include them, and then if it's in the boilerplate, then great, if not, you have to add it.
And
But I have a construction schedule, 72 hours advance notice, probably monthly reporting during construction activities, and then 2 years of monitoring of the salt marsh, to demonstrate that it's successfully reestablished. So that you need to get at least 75%, well, it's not really a set criteria, but 75% would be the minimum
Yeah.
vegetative coverage of salt marsh species. So we're probably looking at all Spartina ultimiflora, but we need it needs to be well vegetated to be compliant. And then, all the other stuff is presumably already on the plans, like any dewatering or, channel, mitigation or anything like that during construction is all part of the details on the plans already.
Yeah, my only thought is, and refresh my memory if I'm wrong on this one, I don't recall seeing anything in the narrative or on the plans about stockpiling of materials or equipment during.
It'll all be off-site, and I think they're gonna use are they gonna use the state?
DCR?
Yeah, DCR,
Yeah, I'm just for, mental health. I would think about a condition, I asked the rest of the commission what they think about a condition of just saying no stockpiling of materials or equipment within 50 feet of resources, just because like that whole area is resource area, is just saying let's keep everything, all stockpiling outside of the resource area.
There's no 50 feet, it's because it's 50 feet is across the street into the marsh.
Well, I'm saying, I'm thinking more that it pushes it that way, up and down the street, up into the uplands on either side, down
You
the
just
street.
simply wanna say, there will be no stockpiling within our jurisdiction? Simple.
Sure.
You could do it within 100 feet, yeah.
Yeah, do it within, sure, yep, yeah, within 100 feet of the resource area. Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to add that as a condition, just, I think it's a
For
worthwhile condition.
when we have the giant flood and everything doesn't just float downstream.
I was just saying, because like Mary was saying, you can't, she was saying, in a way you can't do it because the resource area is right against the road.
Are you projecting based on the changes in the weather patterns that?
Oh, totally, yeah, and the fact that it seems to happen annually, where you go down to like Town Hill and it's just like miles of open water inland from the parking lot.
So we have to rework the language on that, because obviously you need a certain amount of materials
Yes.
on site to do the work, but
Right.
we're talking about, what do you call it, unconsolidated material that could be subject to erosion. So
Yeah.
you're
I
talking
think,
mostly
I think they're probably just gonna remove it. I don't think there's gonna be any
It's
stuff.
just gonna go directly into a truck, because this is too narrow a work area there.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, they're gonna basically be rerouting everybody away
Mhm.
from the, you know, how the road's gonna be
Yeah.
closed, so I just
Yeah.
figured it was feasible logistically to have equipment and stuff stored uphill
Yeah.
from the resource area at the end of the day, rather than sitting around right next to the wetland. Because that is very, very nice resource area. A scale of 1 to 10, that's like upper level resource area.
You could have just said a 10. You said on a scale of 1 to 10, and then you made it.
I'm a scientist, I don't like putting, I like confidence intervals, man. Okay, so we have our conditions, and I will make a motion to approve this NOI given the conditions that Mary and I just brought up. First,
I wrote them down for you.
thanks, Mary.
I just put them over.
Alright, so, and I'll take, Dan, you seconded that, right?
Second.
Awesome, thank you. Alright, everybody in favor, hands in the air.
Aye.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, thanks, Evan.
Alright, we're killing it. It's only 9.
I was deadly afraid that I was gonna have to request a table of motion about climate change.
I will stay within my jurisdiction sometimes for climate change.
But you're easily baited out, so
I am easily baited, it's true.
I am too. Very good.
If you can't read my rights, then just let me know.
Good night, guys.
Good
night.
Oh, wait, it's going this way. Little group down. Alright, so next thing up, we've got David Manti.
Tom Hughes requested a continuance for this as well.
Of course. Who would, can we not continue it just out of spite? Is that
No,
allowed?
no, but I thought I said that we expected to hear something this next.
Yeah, did he say anything else besides continuing?
He did not, he just requested a continuance today.
This was just a regular notice of intent, not a restoration notice of intent, right?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think that is the case.
Alright, so we're gonna continue Mr. Manti to the 7th.
So moved.
Second?
Alright, all in favor? Hands. Okay. 21 Cottage, Nathan Gray, continued NOI / enforcement order. What's up?
That was the one that we started, issuing a letter, and I don't know that the letter was ever finalized.
Was one of you gonna write the
I drafted a letter.
Okay, yep.
I went in and
Copied
signed
you.
it.
Did you sign it?
I signed it that morning after.
And-
Gretchen's dog had been hit by a car, so she wasn't there. So I signed the letter and asked them to send it out certified.
Okay. No, I don't know exactly when how much notice he got in the end.
I don't even know if it was actually sent or not. I can look.
There
In
should
the
be a
morning?
green card floating around somewhere if we
Yeah,
send it out.
that's what I'm worried about, is that it's in the mess of things that I kind of got left with in the wake of Bill leaving and Kara leaving and all of the span between
So this
them
was
not being there.
This was something that I think that was like a Monday or a Tuesday we had that exchange. And then Kara left on like the Thursday.
She was already gone by the time the letter was written.
Oh, really?
Because I met with Gretchen and
Oh, right, that's why Gretchen was, okay.
she was trying to handle it, but then you wanted to make some edits, or have her make edits, and she wasn't comfortable making edits.
Yeah, and then we bailed on the edits.
And we bailed on the edits,
Yeah.
okay.
So the letter never was sent.
I don't,
We don't know.
We don't know.
I signed.
Yeah, that.
Mary
I
wrote,
got
I
it as far as
signed.
I could, and then
Yeah.
I couldn't send it myself, so.
Right.
I would have to see if we have a green card for it. saying that it has been sent.
So if you can't find it, tell me and I'll come sign the same letter again and you can green card
We
it.
gotta change the dates, obviously, and
Oh, okay.
Right.
move it forward, with the dates if we never received it.
Yeah,
So he has to give him-
unfortunately with that span, with not having an agent and with Carol only being here for like
Yeah.
2 weeks, it was just, there's a jumble of stuff that just kinda got,
If there's,
dropped,
if
unfortunately.
you have email or a telephone number for this guy, it would probably be easier to just have a conversation with him and let him know this is what our issue is, your project isn't proceeding, you have a notice of intent, you're not showing up, we don't know what's happened with it, we need you to show up at a meeting.
Is there a notice of intent? I mean, it's not on the DEP website. I mean,
Got filed properly or not, we
and
don't know.
remember
Yeah.
the story like, oh, he's gonna refile because he's gonna put the septic
Right.
system in it?
So we need to hear from him, what he's gonna do, and if not, then issue an enforcement order and say, look, this has been a year. You put stuff in the wetland, it needs to come out.
And the work has not been completed,
Right.
it's partially done, and,
You put a structure right in the middle of the wetland, so.
and then the last thing I remember
Is there a standard amount of time you have to give someone to remove something when you do an enforcement order?
No.
It's just,
Well, and the thing is too, he came in under a permit to do a different activity. We were like, hey, this is a problem, this needs to come out.
I see.
And then the whole thing just kind of floated away on a breeze.
So it was shown on his plan when he came into.
Well,
It was a year ago,
I'm sorry, I don't
Was it
mean
good?
to.
Yeah, no.
No,
No, I'm just
Originally, he did
curious.
the work, originally he was working in the wetland and somebody dropped a dime on him.
Okay.
He had to come in, and in the course of addressing that issue, he said, well, I've gotta do a new septic system, I've gotta move sheds around and whatnot, and he was gonna lump it all together into one single filing. Tried to do it himself, I think,
Well,
made an inadequate filing, never got a file number, and then we've just languished ever since.
And he may have sold it.
hmm.
Because between Bill and Kara, I had to talk with them to say administratively, these are the steps you need to take. Like this is the next step, right? So like, just to give you the roadmap, this is what you need to do. And he told me, he's like, well, I'm looking to sell it. So I don't know if that's happened.
Can he sell it with a,
He shouldn't be able
He doesn't have
to.
anything from us that prevents him from doing it. That
Well,
sounds
he's got an
like-
open order, right? It's a,
Does he? If he doesn't have,
The septic issue would be the one, the title.
We
is
don't
there a
know
title?
what-
No, yeah,
I
we
thought it
don't
was
know.
an inadequate filing, but it was still now an open filing. Sorry, not an open order, an open filing,
okay.
right? Because he's got an incomplete poor filing on the books. And so in theory, the title review ought to come up. I mean, you can transfer the title, it happens all the
There's
time, but
nothing on the
people are getting
title
better
right
at
now.
catching it.
There's nothing on the title, an open file doesn't go on the title.
No, it doesn't, but just, when they do they're getting better at doing title review and finding these open permits for properties.
Yeah, but there isn't anything, there won't be anything.
Isn't there the open, didn't we?
No, nothing gets recorded until you get an order of conditions, so there's no,
Ah, yeah, you're
it's
right.
not gonna show up on a title search.
Ah,
So there's.
I forgot, yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily prevent the sale, but we can continue to take enforcement action up to 3 years after the transfer.
I totally forgot about that detail.
So they're,
Yeah.
the new owners are not necessarily off the hook if the property is conveyed.
Mhm. Anyway, so, fun times.
so right now the issue is that we need to try and track down the enforcement order letter, see if it was ever actually sent to him, and then we need to get him to come into a meeting
Yes,
and actually explain what's going on.
that's been the goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there are 3 actions potentially to take and arguably take all of them. One of them is find the first letter that I signed and find out if it got sent, and if there's a green card, if the woman at the front remembers me coming in to sign it or not. That'd be helpful. And if Gretchen you know, after the issue with her dog, I don't know if she remembers doing it or not, but in theory it went to her desk. And then giving me a new letter to sign with a new date, we'll do it a second time. And then just calling them and being like, hey man, what's up? And then, haven't heard from you in a while, nice to meet you.
I mean, there were some, in the enforcement order, there was a thing, complete attached notice of intent. I haven't seen that
Right, but
notice.
that, to Mary's point, we got the NOI, we never actually got to the recordable part. 'Cause it
Right,
didn't
but
forever.
it's not a, I don't know if it's a valid notice of intent, so, this enforcement order is incomplete on that score as well.
If he even received it, yes.
So it might not even matter if we even find that there was, if we do track down the original enforcement order because it's incomplete.
I would think, it would be really helpful if you could just check what's in the file, let
Right.
us know, and then we decide how best to proceed, after you talk to him too. I mean, we just don't know what to do at this point.
Some of the missing bits that you might want to see sometimes, this was set out by Bill.
Okay.
Some stuff for the Dropbox is just.
It's graveyard
Yeah,
paper.
just sent out.
Should be in
Can I do both?
that might be
Somewhere
another
in his-
repository.
Make myself
emails,
try, I'm gonna
yeah.
laugh too hard about it.
There's nothing in
Alright.
the
That's right.
registry of deeds outside of his homestead.
You got that from the Dropbox.
And
No,
there's
from
nothing on any of the real
email,
estate websites
Okay.
about
way
it.
back when.
Well, that's cool, that means at least he's still there, so we don't have to worry about that problem.
So with that, can I make a motion to continue the meeting for the next, to continue this hearing till the next meeting?
I will second that.
Before we take the vote on that, do we wanna do separate vote, I mean, she's got the marching orders on the various activities, but do we wanna vote on any of them, or?
Nope, I think that the saga continues.
Okay.
And that we get the information we need and we figure it out next meeting.
Okay, cool. So in that case, you got first, we got a second, Dan seconded, hands in the air for an aye. Beautiful. Okay, so then,
You can take it.
moving on down, we have 2 certificates of compliance. Cassandra Gallipo, at 25 Northern Boulevard, DEP 0501345. Sam, go. Do you want me Samantha or Sam? I've never actually asked.
It doesn't really matter, whatever is easiest. So this certificate of compliance for 25 Northern Boulevard was originally issued to add a second floor addition onto an already existing single family home. The work was never completed. It never even got started. I did go out and visit the site last week and am satisfied to say that there was in fact no work done. There's still only one story.
Has the order of conditions expired now? How long is it?
I believe it was originally issued, actually I think it was issued this year. I think the filing started in March, and I believe they're trying to sell the house now. And they just didn't do the work, and I have asked them if they wanted to keep it open for the new buyers, and they have asked me to
Close it out.
close it out.
I will move to grant the certificate of compliance.
Second.
First, second, all in favor, hands in the air. Beautiful.
What is that number?
1345.
Okay,
Yep.
Alright, so pass that one around. The next one is Jennifer DiCarlo, representative. 35th Street, DEP 050, get this, 72.
Yes. It's a very old one. So Jennifer DiCarlo is, I believe she's the attorney, maybe, for the sellers, I think. They are currently trying to sell that property. They do have the open order of condition from 1983 that was originally issued to replace a wood foundation on the house with a concrete foundation. The work was never done. I did go out there last week, and I'm satisfied to say that it is still very much a wood foundation, and the work was never, in fact, done.
Right? That's a stunner. And to be able to like actually track down that paperwork,
That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
and believe it or not, we actually have a file for that
That's the center.
out in
Wow.
our file storage.
That is
That's-
the center.
that's like the one file folder that didn't get destroyed.
That's pretty good.
Yes.
Okay, well, I would make a motion to, did we already do that?
No, go ahead, keep going.
Make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance.
Second,
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you, Dan.
the contempt of Dan Pettos. I brought a computer and I just
That
didn't think.
pen's gonna run out of ink. Thanks,
It's not even a busy night for this. All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, great.
I just miss seeing Pete's evolution over the course of the night. I've been looking forward to that ever since we got back in.
It's true, he does get better.
Is he okay?
He's got the flu.
Flu?
He's got the flu.
Is
As
he
far as we know
confirmed?
from now, no.
No, right, it's
He
pronounced.
started feeling sick this morning.
Okay.
He has flu-like symptoms.
That didn't sound good though. Yeah. Well, so was he.
Anyways,
So good, we are on,
But yeah, so that's why we let him go early,
yes.
because suffering,
start
when he's
that
already suffering,
signatures and you but you make
didn't do that.
and then by the end it's just like a Pete.
Alright, so then, no extension permits, no emergencies, no reissuances, we did our enforcement, other business, bylaw discussion. At this point, I don't think it's feasible, reasonable, or anywhere near sane, even if there's a fall town meeting, to try to do anything by then, because we just had the turnover and we couldn't schedule it,
No.
so. So yeah, we're gonna punt, and when Sam sort of stops spinning like crazy and actually lands a little bit, maybe we can schedule some listening type session thingies for like one in October, one in November, one in January, you know, whatever. But we can do that when Sam's sane.
Okay.
That's a good plan. I feel like I should have asked this before or should know this, but do people who buy a house on Plum Island get some document included, like, you know, with like the right to farm type stuff that you have to sign, informing them of what they're getting into?
They probably should.
Because if not, they probably should.
Yes.
Is that something we could generate?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm proposing, is that if this doesn't exist, just a one-pager that's like, please recognize you've bought a house that is in a protected resource area, and that if you plan to do any renovations or landscaping, your first stop should be to see the conservation agent
Yes.
in town hall. It'd be that simple, but should be
Yeah,
something
absolutely.
that they get upon purchasing a house.
I don't know how legally you make that happen, like how you get that in the file of things that people receive.
I mean, like, when you buy a house, you get something from the assessor being like, can we do a walkthrough, and you bought it for this price, and, you know,
Is that a Lisa Mead question? How we,
maybe.
Good question, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
You're
that's-
right, though, what's the conduit, how do
How do you
you,
get it to them?
how do you get it to
Okay,
them?
well, that's a good place to start.
How do we know they bought the house to know to
I
send
mean,
it
I
to
guess
them?
it's-
even
The
if-
assessors, the assessors are the ones they get
I think
notified.
the first thing, you know, before it leaves the meet, or even the second thing or the third thing, whatever, if we just have a pile of these letters, these like little welcome packet, just stacked in the assessor's office, so that when people come in, there's this like, oh, what's this, you know, like, oh, look, I can get my gas done, I can get my electric done, and they get all the, you know, all the pamphlets.
The
and
lawyers
giveaways.
handle most of that.
Well,
So I don't know, I agree it's a good place to have it, let's do it, let's generate the document, but let's simultaneously initiate a conversation with Tracy about the best way to do
well, there's a
that.
bunch of flyers in the conservation office,
But nobody goes to the conservation office
but you
willingly.
don't necessarily have to reinvent all of it. There may be one that's already.
No, that's what if there isn't one there, if there isn't something there already, let's generate it, and then let's,
Leave a stack
Well,
of
that-
that's just the way to go.
That was actually something that, and it's, if this is not the time that you guys wanna discuss it, we can put it off to the next meeting and throw it on the agenda. Some sort of, public outreach and education program, not necessarily like we meet on Wednesdays at this time but just something to get like a subcommittee together or something that I can help to facilitate and mediate between the commission and this committee to do some sort of public outreach and education program to make information a little bit more readily accessible to people, because it seems like in the very, very, very short time that I've been here that people just don't know. They just don't know what they're getting into, and they don't
Like this guy that
understand.
bought the house and started tearing shit.
That's exactly
Right,
what Tom did.
yeah. And it's just
He
people
thought he
just
was
don't.
doing a good thing because
Right.
he was cleaning up the property.
And because
you know.
it's so much, when you live inland and it's, you don't have wetlands on your property, and it's just so easy to kind of get away with stuff like that and to be able to do things without any permission. So if you move from an inland area
Yeah.
to, say, a barrier beach where, if you're on the primary dune especially, it's just, it seems like there's a lack of active educating for people. So like kind of putting stuff out there and saying, before you even consider that, oh, I might want to do some work at my house and I live on the beach, I've already seen all this stuff around, all of these these signs and things, putting signs up at like public access ways.
The Plum Island taxpayers do that, some of that outreach on their own with their people, and anybody who's applying for a building permit on Plum Island automatically use CE.
Right.
That's after they've already made a decision to do something, and sometimes
And-
after they've already done it.
Right, and unfortunately, I think that's, if you're waiting until people decide they want to do something, then you might not be getting them the education that they need, they might not be getting the information that they need. So to kind of do some sort of active outreach with people who are visiting the island, who are buying houses, who have lived there for a while and just
Yes.
don't know the ins and outs of things, to do more active outreach.
Well, the realtors are, are all another point of contact, and they should be talking to their clients, but they don't, they like to.
They don't want to do anything that's going
Right.
to
Yeah, they just.
Because when you start telling people,
discourage
oh, it's gonna be
someone from
really
buying.
difficult and you're gonna have to go through all of these processes if you ever wanna do
They don't wanna know
anything.
the minimum that they're legally required to disclose.
That's correct.
Right.
really- yeah.
Which is again why I'm saying to
Well-
potentially do a little bit more public outreach and.
How would you do
I
that?
have some ideas about that if we wanna
I
push
got an
this
idea
off
for
to a
you.
next meeting.
Should we adjourn our public hearings?
Well, yeah, there's one more quick topic I wanna cover.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to cut you off, I didn't mean.
Right.
I don't
Right,
know if
'cause this
part of
gets-
this
Great
is
idea,
recorded.
Let's,
Talk about it next time.
yeah, let's throw it in the winter hopper for the feedback sessions, the public listening things.
That's a good idea.
And so, like, bring it up and just say, hey, there's this idea, would, you all be interested? Because the Plum Island contingent is gonna make up a really big portion of the people that are gonna wanna come talk about the bylaw.
Right.
And so, that'd work.
A
And
good
then
time
you could
to
actually
say.
talk to the people that you're looking to sort of
Right.
Reach out
educate,
to.
and say, hey, would this work for you? How do you wanna do it? So
Right.
let's throw that in that pile.
One thing that like Ipswich does is, they have a session at the beginning of their meetings before the public hearings start called citizens queries, and they say 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Anybody can come in and ask a question. I'm thinking of doing such and such, or whatever it is, and get some feedback. That's something we can easily do. It extends your meetings a little more, but sometimes you don't need that time because nobody's here to do that. But that's an option that, I know that they use in Ipswich sometimes.
So the one point I want to bring up, just the doc policy that we were kicking back and forth. I mentioned it when I came in to say hi, and she didn't know if she had the clean copy, the most up-to-date copy for posting.
Thought we took care of that.
I did too, and Sam's not sure if we did.
The problem that we had is when Bill came in last week and he was looking for it, he was having a hard time finding it. For some reason, we couldn't find it, and it very well could be that when they switched over his like desktop account on the computer, not all of the files got switched over. So it
I
very
can
well
resend it to you.
may, yeah.
What are
Mine
we
still
talking
has.
about?
We made a doc policy last fall to sort of close one of the loopholes, and more or less
Titan.
Tighten the
It's a
loophole,
pol-
there's
it's a
still a
policy.
loophole?
Yeah, because it's a policy.
Oh, alright, so
Docks
it's a
within
policy.
the ACEC, the area of critical environmental concern,
Mhm.
to try to limit the proliferation of those docks in the ACEC.
So,
Under
yeah.
certain conditions. There was a policy that Ben drafted, and then when I came on the board, I edited it a little bit, and I have the red line copy that I emailed to you, or to the, I don't know who got it, but I can resend it again, and I can send a clean copy as well. I can just eliminate the track changes and send you a clean copy of it.
Yeah, and we've got it, and we sort of voted on the policy, we had it, we just need to.
Right.
Exactly, so we just need to punt to the,
Even though it didn't really, did it make a difference in the last doc with the ancient stuff?
No, because he opted to get around it by putting all the physical structure outside of the ACEC.
Okay.
It's a
the
very, it's a
spirit
very,
of the law versus the.
yeah, it's a very unique site. There's not many sites where you could do
Get
that.
away with,
But yeah, that's
there's
what.
not enough bank there.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got it. Mary's gonna resend it.
Yeah, and then you can just drop kick it straight to the internet and just get up on the website.
And,
Sweet, and then we can start talking about it.
Yep, so I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Wait,
Nope.
what about all the minutes?
Oh, wait for the minutes.
I'm like the one, teacher, we forgot to sign the homework.
Yes,
There are a lot
alright,
of minutes, but we can't go through them all tonight, there's too many.
so
and-
let's
and some
just
of
take
it's
them up
too
again
long.
next time.
I had a
Can we do
couple
one of them?
the last two I had corrections on.
Okay.
Okay, corrections to minutes, this is good. We can hand the
I did
minutes
the
in
first
for
two.
correcting. Which two did you two, Dan?
Which I did the first three,
Um,
yours too.
So this one here,
Did you get a copy of this, the photos that Mark West submitted?
That was for.
Seven Larkin?
Yes, I do have
Oh,
that.
Okay.
covered
It
category
doesn't make any sense at all.
right here.
Yeah, that's, somebody did a cut and
Which
paste.
No,
date
that's-
are you
yeah.
doing?
April 20.
Yeah. Well,
I haven't got that one yet.
Alright, so Dan's got corrections on
It's
April
not
20.
jurisdictional if they want, they can fill it in.
And, and this is the May 11th, and there's this whole Julie Samasco thing at the
Oh,
end.
yeah. I'm not-
That it's like, I think just get rid of the whole thing, because it was just bogus, the whole thing.
There's a lot of commentary on, emotional reactions of people and stuff and
There
some of
was-
these
there was-
minutes and stuff. It just needs to be stricken from, it's not appropriate for the minutes.
There was never an actual bona fide request for certificate of compliance
Yeah.
from the,
And that's all
The
we need,
applicant.
that's all we need to track. So,
that was all I saw, just,
going forward, who is responsible? Are you responsible for doing the minutes for all the meetings? or is it
Chrissy will be the new admin.
The new admin, okay. So maybe we can be more clear about what needs to be included in the minutes. And it really, it doesn't, my understanding, and I guess it varies from board to board, but you need to track the motions. And the topic, the motions, and what the decision was, just a recap of the discussion. It doesn't need to say,
Jennifer took really good minutes. I think a great thing to do for Chrissy would be to go back and get some of the meetings that
Yeah.
Jennifer created as like templates for the
Right.
I
type of.
happen to have printed out Robert's Rules of Order,
Oh.
and what minutes must include is right on here. I don't know if you want to use that as a.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, all this editorial stuff, the reason why there was a title, who cares if there was a title search?
right, we don't need the book and page number for the order of conditions, when we're issuing a certificate of compliance and all this. There's just a lot of stuff that I just ended up striking. So if you did two of the minutes and I did two, then maybe we can just give them to be redrafted and then we can vote on them again at the next meeting.
Yeah, because if they're really long right now, it'd be a lot easier to go through them if
It's
they're
gonna
shortened
take-
considerably.
We have to go through each one and say, I'd like to make this change and this change and this change, is that?
Works for me, because I was just gonna say something like, I thought they were all really long.
I think that the one had, that she wrote on the bylaw, the special conservation meeting on the bylaw, that was only 2 pages, I have no problem with that one. Except it doesn't, there's a blank in it, so. that one.
Alright, so then, yeah, maybe we can,
Oh, wait, that's the same meeting date, too.
we can give these to Chrissy and just basically say, these are badly done.
Right.
This is a good example of what not to do. We got a good example of what to do.
Yeah.
Can you make these like
that.
those?
So yeah, go to Jen, when did Jen leave? She left right at the beginning of the pandemic,
A little bit before maybe.
maybe a month or two before,
Yeah.
so we're talking about fall 2019.
Yeah, like
They-
December, November, October, yeah. So,
I know
yeah,
it's getting late, and I have a question
Alright.
related to that.
Are you giving me, this is like 3 hours early for us.
The Pearson Drive thing, where the Cricket Lane,
Mhm.
is that the one? That seems to be the most contested right now, that development.
Yep.
Mhm.
So is the
Just
only,
before you start, before you ask the question, because we closed that
okay,
hearing,
yeah.
if it's substantive about the
You
project,
can go ahead and close it.
okay.
Mhm.
Just because we don't wanna, we can't
No,
discuss
it's-
it outside of the hearing.
Okay.
Right, like,
If it's administrative and how we handle it, that's different, but if it's actually substantive.
right, if you just wanna sort of people up to speed on how things work and we can explain things to you for your personal benefit, that's one thing, but if it's, like Mary said, yeah.
Okay, you can go ahead and close the
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
No, it's
Let's meet later.
yeah.
Alright, I will move to adjourn.
Second.
First, second, all in favor?
Saying to turn off, okay.